Hello, 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 beautiful and amazing people. How are you guys doing? Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Welcome to the Wealthy Trustee webinar. Tonight, I'm going to be educating you guys on how to actually create a trust, how to actually set it up yourself. Okay. So my name is Christina Yvette. I am a trustee and I am a trust strategist. So I have been a trustee for 10 years now. And with all of this experience, what I do is I educate the masses on how to become a trustee, how to actually operate a trust efficiently and effectively. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. So if you are here because you want to learn how to build generational wealth the right way, and you want to set up a trust fund, then you are in the right place. So we're going to dive in. I have a short presentation for you guys. So in the presentation, like I said, I'm going to be teaching you the steps that you need to take. We're going to go over a couple of different things. So I'll go over that. And then after the presentation, I will show you guys what a trust looks like. And then we could dive into Q&A, okay? So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started, you guys. So let me share my screen here. All right. So I'm Christine Yvette. Like I told you, I was a trustee since 2015. So that is 10 years. And the way that I actually became a trustee was by way of real estate. So I was a registered nurse. And when I was a registered nurse, I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was extremely frustrated because the hospital that I started my career in, they were short staffed. And so literally when I was in the interview, they asked me, can you start right now, like today? And I'm like, this is crazy. Like I don't have no experience, right, as a nurse. And so with this hospital that I started my career in, I was working 5, 6 days a week and 12, 13, 14-hour shifts, sometimes upwards of 16-hour shifts. So I got burnt out very quickly in my career. And because of the burnout, it led me into finding other ways of getting out of my career, meaning finding other ways for me to become financially free, for me to stop living paycheck to make paycheck, for me to be able to find at least a side hustle or a second stream of income. And so one day I was driving to work and I heard this guy on the radio. His name is Stan Merrill. And so he was on this TV show called Flip This House. So he says on the radio, he's like, do you want to learn how to flip houses? And I'm driving to work and like my head is like just, pretty much like I almost went into whiplash. I was like, yeah, I want to learn how to flip houses. So he was setting up a 3-day seminar. So I went to this 3-day seminar. And in those 3 days, I learned so much about real estate that I actually fell in love with real estate. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go start this real estate company. And so that's what I did. I started a real estate investment company. And within 6 months of me actually attending that seminar, I bought my first property. And so thankful to God. I bought this property zero down. So I literally did not use any of my own money. Zero, not $1, not one penny of my own money. And so I got this property with a hard money lender. And so my hard money lender, he is a multi millionaire. And so he is the one who put 100% of the money up for me. And in the midst of us transacting, I told him, I said, I actually invited him out to lunch. And I looked him in the eye and I'm like, can you be my mentor? And he said yes, right? Who can say yes? Who can say no to this face, right? So he says yes. So when I closed on the property, he told me you need to put that house in a trust. And I was like confused because I never heard of a trust before. I'm young, I'm 25 years old. So I'm like, what is a trust? And so he began to educate me and teach me on trusteeship and what a trust is. And this guy, he had over $200 million in worth of real estate up north. And so I'm like, okay, well, if you are, at this level that I want to be at one day, then I'm obviously going to listen to what you're talking about, right? So I set up the trust. So I went ahead, I set up the trust, I became a trustee. And I knew that I needed to protect myself and I needed to protect this house because I was young. I didn't know what I was doing, never flipped a house before, and anything could have happened, right? So I'm dealing with contractors, I'm dealing with subcontractors, people, they could get injured, on my construction site. So I knew that I wasn't going to allow someone to snatch my first property away from me. And that's why I took heed to what he was saying. And now I have been operating within trusteeship since 2015. So now what I do is I educate others on how to do the same thing, how to operate in the private using a trust, right? So my disclaimer to you is this is not legal advice or tax advice. So I'm not a licensed attorney. I am not a certified public accountant CPA, okay? So what you're gonna learn in this webinar is what a trust is, different tax strategies, wealth building strategies, how to actually operate the trust, the different contributors in the trust, and how to protect your assets. Now, the question that I want you to know is, how do these companies pay little to no taxes, right? So you have these big brands, you have Facebook, you have Amazon, you have Microsoft, right? You have Berkshire Hathaway, right? And so we have heard these billionaires say some outrageous things. We've heard them say, for example, Trump, we've heard Trump say, I don't pay taxes because I'm smart, right? We heard Warren Buffett say, I pay less taxes than my secretary. And so they're not lying. And if they are out here in the public telling you that they pay little to no taxes, you need to take heed to what they're saying. Because if you put yourself in that position, it's going to allow you to build wealth faster if you're not out here giving it away to every single agency that wants to take your money. Okay, so it is perfectly legal, and I will show you the structure that you need to be implementing within your world in order for you to get to this point. Because if you are saving on taxes, that means that you're going to deploy that money somewhere else. And if you're deploying that money somewhere else, that means that you can put it in different places like crypto, index funds, real estate, and the list goes on. So we're going to go into depth about that, right? Now, let's dive into the meats and potatoes, right? Why you guys are here. So let's talk about a trust. And a lot of you guys, you've heard terms like trust fund baby, all of these things. And so I'll break all of that down for you because it's just so vitally important for you to know this stuff so that you can make an informed decision if this is something that you need within your structure, okay? So now let's talk about what a trust is, because a trust, what I want you to know is that it is an entity. So you are an entity, okay? I am an entity. So we are entities. A trust is also an entity, okay? So you and I are living, breathing entities. In society, a trust is also seen as the equivalent. A trust is seen as a living, breathing entity. Okay, so it's seen as a human. Now, there is no restrictions on what a trust can and cannot do, meaning that a trust can do everything that you can do. A trust can do everything that a human and natural person can do. For example, if you are able to go out tomorrow and buy a house or buy a car, the trust is able to also go and buy a house, buy a car. If you're able to build credit, the trust is able to build credit. If you're able to get a mortgage, if you're able to write a book, if you're able to do any of these things, the trust is also able to do the same thing, okay? So just keep that in mind, because if you put yourself in a position to where you are establishing something that is so very powerful, you're actually duplicating yourself, right? Because if the trust is able to do everything that you can do, but you're still able to do everything that you can now do everything times two, right? So just keep that in mind. Now, remember, we said this is an entity, okay? So because it's an entity, how does this entity come into fruition? How does it come into existence, right? This is what you need to know. A trust comes into existence by way of a contract. So it is what we call a contractual entity, okay? Meaning that you create a contract, right? An agreement, and you legalize it, and it actually creates an entity, okay? So a trust is a contract. There are several different parts to this contract. I'm not going to tell you all the different parts to the contract. I'm just going to tell you two parts that I want you to know for right now. The first part is the declaration of trust. The declaration of trust is where you're declaring what it is that you are creating in this contract. And then you're declaring what it is not that this contract is also creating. So meaning that you're declaring that you are creating a trust in this agreement. Remember, there's thousands of different contracts. So this contract that we're putting together is actually creating a trust, okay? And it is not creating an LLC. It is not creating a corporation. It is not creating a joint venture. It is not creating a partnership, okay? So you have to be very specific in your declaration of trust. Now, let's go on to the next section. So the entire agreement, the entire contract is called an indenture, okay? Indenture, the term means agreement, okay? So you're going to hear me tell you a lot of words that we use in the trust world, okay? So start to gather those words so you can become familiar, so that you can so you can get to know the lingo, okay? Now, the next part is the actual agreement, where we have the bylaws. The bylaws are the do's and don'ts, or what we call the terms and conditions. Now, in the trust world, we actually call it provisions, okay? That is where you're going to actually put how you want the trust to be operated, right? So what are the different contributors allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, okay? So that is very important within the trust, because this trust is going to need to be operated by a trustee. And so you need to spell it out so that they're able to operate the trust the right way, okay? So now that we know that it is a trust contract, what you need to know is that there are several different parties involved in this contract. So let's go ahead and break down the different parties. The first party that I want you to know about is the grantor, okay? Other terms that you might hear in the trust world, when you're out here doing your due diligence, doing your research, you might hear the term settlor. You might hear the term trustor. All of that means is grantor. Grantor is the creator of the trust, okay? So the first part of the contract is the creator or the grantor, okay? So that's the person who is establishing the trust for the benefit of someone or something else. That someone or something else is the beneficiary, okay? The grantor is also the individual that is going to place the first asset or something of value into the trust. So they're going to be donating or gifting something into the trust, okay? Keep that in mind. Now, let's move on to the second party. The second party of the trust is the trustee. That is the controller of the trust. That is the individual who is going to be operating the trust on a day-to-day basis. That is the individual who we call the fiduciary, okay? So they're the only person who has full control to be able to operate the trust and manage all of the assets inside of the trust. So they're the individual that can make the decision to either acquire new assets or liquidate the assets that are already held in the trust, okay? They are the fiduciary, excuse me, They are the fiduciary for the beneficiaries, okay? So they're operating the trust for the benefit of somebody else. That somebody else is the beneficiary. Now, let's move on to the beneficiary, okay? The beneficiary of the trust is what we call the inheritor of the trust, right? So that is the person who's going to eventually, in the future, in the event that the trust is expired, they will inherit the assets that are inside of the trust, okay? So the beneficiaries, they also need to know the bylaws of the trust. They need to know the do's and don'ts so that they can actually walk in a fine line and be in alignment with the purpose and intent of the trust, okay? So the beneficiaries are going to, they have what we call beneficial interest there, and they are actually going to be receiving gifts. They're going to be receiving distributions, and ultimately they will receive assets, okay? So just keep that in mind. So now with this trust, right, you have an establishment date, which is the day that it is established, and then you have an expiration date. So you have to choose how long you want this trust to exist for, okay? So I will touch on that in just a moment, but let's move on. Now, there are hundreds of different types of trust, hundreds. I'm going to give you a few different categories that trusts fall under so that at the end of this webinar, you can go ahead and do your due diligence, do your research, okay? So that you can discover which trust is the best trust for you, okay? So with that being said, let's just dive into the different types of trust. One second. Okay, so so let's talk about the first category. The first category is express versus implied, okay? So what is an express trust? An express trust is a written trust. It is a trust that is in the contract format. It's on black and white, and you actually physically sign it, okay? So that's what an express trust is. And most contracts are that way. The other type of trust is an implied trust, which is a verbal agreement, meaning that you and these parties that were involved, they had a verbal agreement. So they spoke to each other and they put these provisions in place. And now it's up to the fiduciary, which is the trustee, to be able to carry out the provisions. Okay. So out of these two categories, you want an express trust. You want everything to be in writing. Just be mindful of that. In the event that, that you end up in court, you have physical documentation, okay? Let's move on to the next category. The next category is simple versus complex. A simple trust is shorter in nature. And with the simple trust, that means that it has less provisions, okay? With the simple trust, the trustee is required to give distributions to the beneficiary, and they're required to give out 100% of whatever's coming into the trust, okay? So 100% distribution. They have to distribute everything. Now, complex trust is longer in nature, has more provisions, more sections, more articles. With the complex trust, the trustee is not required to give distributions to the beneficiaries. That means that the trustee is able to hold that money inside of the trust. They don't have to give distributions, and they can build up what we call the corpus, meaning that they can build up that net worth of the trust, okay? So just keep that in mind. The next category that I want to tell you about is discretionary versus non-discretionary. So a discretionary trust is a trust where the trustee has the discretion to be able to make decisions for the trust estate that is not spelled out in the express contract. So if it's not in the contract, they're still able to decide, yes, this is a good move for the trust organization, or no, it's not a good move for the trust organization, okay? So that's discretionary. On the contrary to that, you have non-discretionary, which means that the trustee is not able to make decisions for the trust organization that are not in the contract, okay? So that means that they have some form of restriction, because if it's not in the contract, they can't do it. Now, let's talk about the next category that I want to share with you, which is statutory versus non-statutory. With a statutory trust, a statutory trust is a trust that is regulated by the state. So every single state has their own specific state laws. Those state laws, we call them statutes and codes. So if you have a statutory trust, it means that the state statutes and codes are embedded inside of the contract. Because those state statutes and codes are embedded inside of the contract, the state regulates that trust. That trust is also public. And it's restricted, meaning that you can only use that trust in that state, okay? So if you set it up in Texas, you can only use it in Texas. You can't use it in Georgia, Florida, Nevada, anywhere else, okay? So that is, so that's one of the limitations with a statutory entity. Now, on the other hand, you have non-statutory. A non-statutory trust is where there are no state statutes or codes embedded inside of that contract. So the states do not regulate that type of trust. That type of trust is not registered with the state or the county, which means that it's not a part of the public records, which means that it is private, okay? So you get to maintain obscurity with that type of trust entity, okay? Another thing is that it is operating under the common law jurisdiction, okay? So that means that with a non-statutory trust, because it is not confined or limited to one state, you can use it in the entire nation. So you can use it in all US states and all US territories like Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Virgin Islands, okay? So just be mindful of that. And the last category that I want to tell you guys about is revocable versus irrevocable, okay? So let's talk about a revocable trust. Now, when we are referring to revocable and irrevocable, we are referring to one party of this contract, okay? Remember, there's several different parties, but when we're referring to revocable and irrevocable, we're only referring to one. And that party that we're referring to is the grantor, which is the creator, okay? So with a revocable trust, what we're saying is that the grantor has power and control and can administer the trust, okay? Administer the bylaws that are inside of the trust. So with a revocable trust, typically the grantor and the trustee are the same person, which means that because the creator and the fiduciary are the same person, that this type of trust is actually seen as you. So it's seen as an alter ego of you, okay? So typically with that type of trust, you are going to use your social security with that type of trust. That type of trust is seen as an extension of you, okay? Now, with the revocable trust, the grantor is able to make changes to the trust, able to terminate the trust, able to remove beneficiaries and trustees of the trust, and also able to take out assets that are inside of the trust, okay? Because the grantor has so much power, creditors can come after this type of trust. Remember, it's seen as their alter ego, so it's seen in society as them. So if you have a mortgage company that wants to foreclose, the creditor can come after the trust, okay? So unfortunately, with a revocable trust, your assets are not protected. They are not. But this type of trust can help you avoid probate, okay? So if this type of trust was sued, then what can happen is the judge can decide to pierce through the trust. If the judge decides to pierce through a revocable trust, that means that the judge is going to force you to produce the trust in court. If the judge forces you to produce the trust in court, then that means that you need to bring the whole entire contract, and now it becomes a part of the public records because every single court case is a part of the public records, which means that everyone is now going to know the contents of the contract. They're going to know the net worth, the assets, who the beneficiaries are, and everything that's inside of the trust. And so your trust is no longer private, okay? So that is what a revocable trust is. Now, let's talk about the other category of trust, okay? So every single trust is going to fall within these two. The other category is an irrevocable trust. And remember, when we're talking about the revocability, we're talking about the grantor. So with a irrevocable trust, that means that the grantor has irrevocability. So what we're talking about is that the grantor, the creator, they have no power, no control with an irrevocable trust. So the trustee is the person who has all the power, all the control. With an irrevocable trust, the grantor and the trustee are not the same person. They cannot be the same person, okay? Because it's obviously contraindicated, okay? So with that being said, the grantor, the creator, they cannot terminate the trust. They cannot make changes to the trust. They cannot remove trustees or beneficiaries. They cannot remove assets from the trust, okay? Because the grantor doesn't have any power and any control, creditors cannot come after an irrevocable trust. This trust is seen as a totally separate entity from you. So this trust is its own island. It is separate from you, and it operates off of its name and its own EIN. So it's not seen as you, okay, which is a beautiful thing. And that is generally how you want to be operating these entities, okay, which is that it is separate from you. It is not you. All right. Now, with this type of trust, with an irrevocable trust, your assets are fully protected 100% because creditors belonging to the grantor and the trustees cannot come after this trust, okay? And if this trust was to go to court, the judge would decide, due to contract law, to not pierce through an irrevocable trust. It's highly unlikely that a judge will pierce through an irrevocable trust, okay? Which means that you get to maintain the integrity of that trust as well as the privacy of that trust, and it will not be a part of the public records, which is what you want. Ultimately, you do not want anyone to know what's inside of your trust contract, who the beneficiaries are, what assets you have in it, what the net worth of the trust is. You don't want anyone to know any of that. You want your trust to be private, okay? So out of everything that I just mentioned, what you need to do is you need to determine what is the best trust for you, okay? So let's talk about how to actually create a trust, okay? So what are the steps that we need to take in order to create a trust? Well, the first thing that you need to determine is what type of trust you want to create. I just gave you several different categories of what trusts fall under, okay? Out of all the categories that I just mentioned, I'm going to tell you the ones that I recommend, okay? And this type of trust fall within all these categories. So I recommend that you have a trust that is express, right? So it's written, that it is a discretionary, so you're able to make decisions, that it is complex in nature, that it is non-statutory, so you can use it in the entire nation, and that it is irrevocable, so it's impenetrable, okay? This is what we call a bulletproof trust, okay? That is the type of trust that you want to create for your business, for your family, for whatever organization that you're running, okay? You want a bulletproof trust. So your trust has to fall within all of these categories for it to truly be bulletproof, okay? Meaning that it's going to hold up in court. It's going to hold up if there's an audit. It's going to hold up if anyone tries to sue or make any claims against any of the assets that you have inside of your trust, okay? Let's move on to number two. Now, number two, what does it say here? It says determine the trust name, okay? So that's what we're going to do. So now that you have decided what type of trust you actually need to create for you and your family, you need to now name that trust, okay? Just like how you're an entity and you're out here using your name and your social security, the trust also needs a name. Just like how you're an entrepreneur and you went ahead and opened up an LLC and you gave it a fancy name, you also have to give the trust a fancy name, okay? Not fancy, but something unique and different, okay? So you're going to name the trust, okay? Now, there's two things that I want you to keep in mind. The first thing is, please do not name the trust after yourself. That is the biggest mistake that I've seen in society. A lot of individuals, when they go to name a trust, they'll name it their first and last name. What is the point of that? You are actually creating a trust so that it can be private and people don't need to know that you're associated with that house or that car or that stock or that bank account. So you're not going to name the trust after yourself, okay? If your name is John Smith, you're not going to name the trust the John Smith Trust, okay? You're going to use names that are very different and unique, right? So an example I like to give is if you like roses, right? Then call it Rose Estate, right? Something very different, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, some people, they like to use their last names. Last names are okay. Why? Because they're common, okay? But do not use the combination of first and last. The second thing that I need you to know is do not put the word trust in the actual name. Remember, we're creating this entity so that we can actually protect our assets. We don't need people out here in society knowing that that asset is owned by a trust. So we don't have to have the word trust in the name, okay? So like I said, the example I gave you was Rose Estates, right? So they can think that it's anything. They can think it's a corporation, an LLC, or a nonprofit, whatever they want, right? They don't have to know that it's Rose Estates Trust, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, the next thing that you have to do is you have to appoint the different parties in this contract, okay? So this is a contractual entity and you have to put the players in the game. Now, the first player that you're going to put in the game is the grantor, the person who creates the trust. If you are creating a revocable trust, then you're going to be the grantor and the trustee. I don't recommend that. If you're creating an irrevocable trust, then you cannot be both the grantor and the trustee. So you're going to have to find a grantor, someone who's 18 and older and able to sign for the trust. And then you're going to appoint yourself as the trustee, okay? You are the trustee of your trust. You're the person who has all of the control, all of the power, and is going to operate this entity, okay? The next party, I need some water. The next party is the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries can be entities. The beneficiaries can also be natural people, which are typically your children. So beneficiaries are anyone who you want to inherit your assets, right? If you have children, then typically we appoint our children. If you don't, then typically it's a next of kin, siblings, parents, right? Things like that. So list your beneficiaries, the people that you want to have those assets, okay, when you transition, okay? And the last very important position that you have to appoint is the successor trustee. The successor trustee is the individual who's going to be taking over after you in the event that something happens to you. So the trust is designed to outlive you, meaning that when you transition, that trust is still going to be there. And so you need to list someone who's going to take over and pick up where you left off. So that person is going to be appointed as the successor trustee. They have to be at least 18 years or older when you are appointing them, and they have to have the desire to actually want to operate a trust. Now, in the event that something happens to you, meaning that if you expire, if you become incapacitated and can't operate the trust, or if you decide that you want to resign and you don't want to operate the trust anymore, then that successor trustee is going to take over. So they're going to pick up where you left off and continue to operate the trust exactly the way that you have been operating it for the last couple of decades, okay? So that's vitally important. You need to list a successor as soon as possible. Number 3 is for you to actually create the contract. So later on in this call, I'm going to go ahead and show you what a contract looks like so that you're able to put a visual to what I'm explaining to you. Now, with the contract, right? Remember I told you that there's bylaws or provisions. So one of the provisions that we put that's so vitally important are spendthrift provisions, meaning that you want to control the money from the grave. So you want to go ahead and put rules and regulations, or what we call restrictions, in place of how the trust is going to be operated and how the beneficiaries are going to be able to spend this money. So if a beneficiary is going to receive, let's say, $10,000 a month, right? You're going to put spendthrift provisions in there to say that they can only spend the money on living expenses, education, real estate, or investments for business. And put restrictions like they cannot spend it on illicit drugs. They cannot spend it on lavish, vacations or parties or things like that, right? So that you can have those restrictions so that you can make sure that the beneficiaries don't blow the dough, right? That is what we see out here, where these individuals, they didn't make the money, but they spend all of it, right? And so we're not in that space. And that's why you need to put yourself in a position to where way beyond the grave, the rules that you set while you were living are still being abided by, okay? So let's move on to number 4. In number 4, we are then going to actually legalize this contract, right? So we have our trust agreement that we have already customized, and it's all set up for our family or our business organization. So now what we need to do is we need to legalize our trust. So we need to notarize it, okay? That's what's going to make it legal. So that means that the trust itself is going to require 2 signatures. It's going to require the grantor's signature as well as the first trustee's signature. Both of those signatures are required. They're going to be witnessed by a notary public. The notary public is then going to sign as the witness and place their seal. Once it is notarized, this becomes a legal entity, okay? So that's that contractual entity that we had spoke about earlier. And now that it is a legal entity, you can start to operate it. So if you notarize it right now, you can start operating it right now, okay? So now that you have your trust notarized and it's legal, you can start using it. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go down to the irs.gov website and you're going to go ahead and apply for an EIN, okay? So when you are applying for this EIN, right, it is a 9-digit number that is issued to the trust entity from the IRS, and that is primarily for banking purposes, okay? So that's exactly the reason why you would apply for an EIN, okay? So now that you have an EIN, what you're going to go ahead and do, you're going to go ahead and move on to number 5, which is open up that trust bank account, okay? So the trust bank account, right? There's 2 things that you have to bring with you to the bank, okay? The first thing that you need to know is that this bank account is what we consider a trust fund, okay? And so you can open up a trust fund with any financial institution that offers trust accounts. Not every single bank or financial institution offer trust accounts. So the type of financial institutions you can go for are banks, credit unions, as well as brokerage firms, okay? So those are the 3 types, or like I said, any other financial institution that offers. Now, the type of accounts that you're going for is a checking account, a savings account, a money market account, a cash management account, and a brokerage account. Those are considered trust funds, okay? So now that you know that you have to go to the bank and open up this account, there are two things that you have to bring with you when you are going to the bank to open up the trust fund. The first thing that you need is a certificate of trust. That is proof of identity that the trust exists. So just like how you are an entity, and we've already established this, right? If somebody asks you for proof of identity, you're able to produce it, right? So that means that you're going to produce your license, right? Your driver's license. Now, what is on your driver's license? Your name, an ID number, an address, and some describing characteristics and your date of birth, right? So there's so many things that's on this instrument that you use in order to prove your identity. Well, the same thing goes for the trust. The trust has to also prove identity, okay? You're not going to just walk up to the bank with no proof. So you're going to provide them with a certificate of trust. On the certificate of trust, it has the name, it has the date of birth of the trust, which is the day it came into existence, right? So if you set up your trust today, today's the date of birth, okay? It has the address of the trust. It has the 9-digit identification number for the trust, and it has other describing characteristics, okay? So you're going to provide them with the certificate of trust as well as the EIN number. So now you're going to provide them with both of those. You're going to identify that you are the trustee of the trust, and they're going to go ahead and open up the trust fund. You need to go ahead and fund that trust, okay? So you're going to fund it with whatever the bank's minimum is or with whatever dollar amount that you desire, okay? So typically banks, their minimum are anywhere between $100 to upwards of $500, just depending on the bank, okay? And you'll go ahead and fund that bank account, okay? And you can put whatever amount that you want as long as you meet that minimum. And you're going to document how much you're going to fund the trust with. So documentation is very important when you're operating a trust. You're going to have board meetings. You're going to have a binder where you're going to secure all of your trust documents, okay? So let's move on. So now that you have created your trust fund, you've funded it, you have a legal contractual entity that you're operating out here in society. The most important step for you to take is for you to actually protect those assets by transferring those assets into the name of the trust. It is so vitally important. Those assets are not going to be protected if they're not in the name of the trust. Okay, so let's talk about this, right? So you have a you have a house, right? And so this house is in your personal name. And a lot of us, we don't know that we're already a part of the public records, right? So people can literally go down to your county website. So if you live in Jefferson County, they can go down to Jefferson County website. They can do a property search. They can put your first and last name, and every single property that you own in Jefferson County is going to show up on the public records, right? So you need to remove yourself from the public records. So what you need to do is two things. In order to transfer an asset into the trust, the first thing that you need to do is list the asset in the trust. So there are schedules, which are different sections in the trust documents, okay? So one of the schedules is where you're going to list all of the assets. So that house that we're talking about, you're going to list that house inside of the actual trust schedule. That's the first place that you're going to put it. So now you're identifying that this asset belongs to the trust. The second thing that you need to do is you need to legally transfer that property. So when you bought that house, you actually received a deed. You received a warranty deed for that house. And so now it's your name, your first and last name that's on the deed. What you need to do is you're going to gift that property to the trust, and you're going to re-deed that property into the name of the trust. So you're going to fill out a new deed. You're going to deed it over from your personal name into the name of the trust. You're going to then record the deed with the clerk of courts. So they're going to now record it, and now they're going to represent and show on the public records that the new owner of that house is the trust. So that is the legal component that you have to do in order to legally have that house be in the trust. So now that house is owned directly by the trust, which means that that house is fully protected. And in the event that somebody wants to snatch that house from you, they're not going to be able to, okay? Because one, they don't even know that you own the house, right? Because you don't. The trust owns the house, right? And they don't even know that you're associated with the house, okay? So that is one of the most important steps. And that is the step that I see that people fail the most. They'll go to the extent of actually setting up a trust, but they'll never physically transfer or legally transfer their properties into the trust. So don't make that mistake, okay? So let's move on to the next section. All right. So the number one reason why you actually want to set up a trust is for asset protection. That is why you're on this call right now. Asset protection and, in a sense, privacy, right? So what can a trust actually protect you from? A trust can protect you from bankruptcy, divorce, foreclosure, heavy taxation, lawsuits, and probate. So we're going to talk about just a few of these, okay? So let's start with divorce, right? A lot of people, they don't know that a divorce is a transfer of wealth, okay? So a divorce is between two spouses, and typically one spouse will end up with everything and the other spouse will end up with nothing. So you need to protect yourself from this situation. Now, a divorce is going to be a lawsuit, and you have to go through family court in order to get a divorce. And with this situation, right, with the divorce, everything that's in your personal name is what is included in the divorce. Meaning, if you have a 401k or a pension, if you have any credit card debts, if you have any assets in your personal name, like a house or any or a car or stocks or crypto or cash money in the bank, right? All of those are considered assets, and if they're in your personal name, then they're going to be included in the divorce, okay? So the way that a trust can protect you is by you actually having a trust and placing assets into the trust. Because remember what we said at the beginning of the call, you are not the trust and the trust is not you, depending on the type of trust that you have, right? So if you have an irrevocable trust, you are not the trust is not you, which means that that trust cannot be pulled into your divorce, which means that all the assets that are inside of that trust cannot be pulled into your divorce, which means that if you have a house, a car, $500,000 in the bank, that is going to stay in the name of the trust and it's going to remain intact and it cannot be pulled into your divorce. So that is how a trust can protect you from losing everything in a divorce, okay? Now, let's talk about the next one. Let's talk about heavy taxation, right? A lot of us, we're giving away half of our money to the government. Especially if you live in California, especially if you live in New York, you are giving away a lot, right? And so it is your job to be able to keep as much money as you can, right? And so a trust can actually help you with reducing your tax liability, which is extreme, right? So for example, a trust can help you avoid death tax, inheritance tax, estate tax, okay? It can help you avoid capital gains tax. Also, depending on the type of trust, you could also qualify to not pay federal taxes, state taxes, sales taxes, property taxes, right? Depending on the type of trust, right? So one of the trusts that we use within our structure is a tax exempt nonprofit trust. And with this type of trust, it is automatically exempt from paying federal taxes, okay? So that's a beautiful thing. I will talk about it in the next coming slides, okay? Now, with this one, right, it can actually receive donations. And so one of the things that the IRS allows you to do, right, is if you have W-2 income, right? If you are a W-2 employee, you can donate up to 60% of your salary to your tax exempt trust, which means that instead of you being taxed on 100% of your salary, not like you normally would, since you've donated 60% of it, you will then only be taxed on 40% of your salary, which means that you'll be saving thousands of dollars. So, for example, if you generate $100,000 in annual gross income, you can donate up to $60,000 to your trust, right? And then that means that you are taxed on 40,000 versus 100,000. So you're going to be saving tens of thousands of dollars. That money can be allocated somewhere else, meaning that that money could then go to crypto, index funds, real estate, stocks, bonds, whatever and wherever you want it to go, okay? Because you're saving. So just think about that. So that's why it's so important for you to be properly structured, and we'll talk about that in the next slide, okay? So the next one is lawsuits, right? And what I want you to know is that the United States is a sue-friendly country, which means that literally everyone wants to sue you. Everybody. Even the people you think don't want to sue you. Your best friend wants to sue you. Your neighbor wants to sue you. Your employer wants to sue you. Your coworker wants to sue you. Your brother wants to sue you. Anybody and the stranger on the street wants to sue you. The car next to you that's driving next to you, they want to sue. Everybody wants to sue you, right? What you need to do is you need to protect yourself from a lawsuit. So do not wait until you're getting sued to protect yourself from a lawsuit. Unfortunately, that's what people do. They wait until they're getting sued. They didn't even think about it, right? That's the last thing that is on your mind. They didn't even think about it. And so they wait until they're getting sued to then protect themselves. And that's not what you want to do, okay? So let me give you an example, right? So let's just say that you're a business owner, and a lot of you guys on the call are, right? So let's just say that you're a business owner and you are operating a company, and this company is an LLC, right? What does LLC stand for? And I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to come on here and you guys can come off mute. Let me know what you think. What do you think? What does LLC stand for?
Limited
Limited
liability
liability
company.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Okay, so you guys are right. It stands for limited liability company. So you actually hear it in the title of this entity.
limited.
Yes, limited, right? Limited liability. So what does that mean to you, right? Because you can hear limited liability. So that means that the company has limited liability. So if the company that you're operating, that entity has limited liability, who do you think has the other half of that limited liability?
You do as a person.
Whoever the authorized member of that company is, whoever the creator is, whoever the owner is, whoever the business manager is, right? So that means that you have liability over that company, right? And so that then becomes a dangerous game, right? Because a lot of us were out here going ahead and creating LLCs thinking that we're safe, when in all actuality, you're not safe, right? Because it tells you in the actual title, right? So now that you know that the company has limited liability and you have limited liability, right? What happens if somebody decides to sue you, right? You're the owner of the company. You're the owner of the business, right? So let's walk through this real quick. You're running an LLC. Let's just say that you are operating a candle business. I love candles. And your customer is now accusing you that their house caught on fire with your candle. So now you're in deep doo-doo. Why? Because you can't prove that it wasn't your candle that caused the fire, right? And so what is the process that the customer has to take? Well, the first thing is that they're going to research the company. They're going to go on Google, look up the company, right? And they're going to see, okay, this company was created in Georgia, right? So now they're going to go to the Secretary of State in Georgia. They're going to do a business search. They're going to put in the name of your business, and on the public records, it shows everything, right? So it shows the authorized member, whoever the owner of the company is, right? It shows all of the company's information, name, email, phone number, EIN, everything, right? Everything is a part of the public records. They can see it all. So now the customer knows who they have to go after, right? So they go ahead and initiate a lawsuit. So now you're being sued. You have this fancy candle company, and now one of the clients decide to sue you, right? And so now they're suing you, and unfortunately, the judge decides, boom, it was your candle that caused their house fire, and you owe them $500,000, right? And so you have a judgment now. You have a judgment on your LLC for $500,000. So what happens if the LLC can't cover that judgment?
Coming after you.
Exactly. So the judge is going to pierce through the corporate veil. So that's what you have been operating with. You've been operating with this little tiny covering, right? The LLC, a little tiny covering. It's called the corporate veil, right? And that's what's been shielding you, right? And so the judge decides to pierce through it. So when the judge pierces through the corporate veil, the judge goes after you, the owner, the authorized member of that LLC. Okay. So now that the judge decides to go after the owner of the business, you, guess what happens? That judgment falls on you. That $500,000 falls on you. So what is it that they can do? Well, this is what the judge does, right? The judge goes ahead and garnishes your entire paycheck, right? Garnishes your wages, your W-2 income, garnishes your bank account. You have a bank account in your personal name with thousands of dollars, garnish, gone, right? Freezes any assets that you have, right? Stocks, crypto. And then also seizes your personal, physical, tangible assets, meaning your house. That house that you live in with your children, gone, seized. That car, that fancy car, gone, seized. Why? Because your business got sued. Because you were the owner of the business. Because you decided to take the liability. That is a dangerous game, especially for my entrepreneurs here, right? So what you need to do is you need to remove that risk, because you're taking a big risk. So the way that you remove that risk is by using a trust. So what happens now, right? Well, your trust is going to be the owner of your business. You are no longer going to be liable for that LLC. Your trust is now going to be liable for that LLC, which means that you now have to remove yourself as the owner of that business, which means that you have to go down to the Secretary of State. You have to do an amendment to the Articles of Organization. You have to remove yourself as the authorized member. You then have to add a business trust as the new owner of that LLC. And now the business trust is 100% liable for that company. So if anything happens to that business, and a lot of you guys y'all operating like some high liability businesses, right? Some of you guys got trucking companies. Some of you guys got Turo businesses. Some of you guys got Airbnb, real estate. What if somebody has a slip and fall? Do you think that your business is going to survive that slip and fall? So the trust is going to be the owner of that business, because now when they go to the Secretary of State because they want to sue your company, guess what? That your name is not going to show up anywhere on the Secretary of State. What's going to show up? Under authorized member, it's going to show an entity name. What's the name of our entity? Rose Estates. So now they're going to see Rose Estates. But what the hell is Rose Estates? We don't know. All I know is that it don't have a human name on here, and they don't have no address that I can go and knock on their door and start taking stuff. That is how you protect yourself. So remember what I said. Do not wait until you're getting sued in order to protect yourself. Because now in this situation where we're talking about the LLC and that judge piercing through the corporate veil, that judge pierces through the corporate veil, guess what? They now go after a trust. They don't go after you. And with that type of trust, because you have to operate your trust the right way, with that type of trust that owns an LLC, it's going to act as a holding company, which means that you're not going to place assets in there because it's liable to get sued. So the whole reason that that trust is designed is to hold the LLC. The LLC is the one that's operating. The LLC is the one that has the products and the services and dealing with the customers and has employees and payroll and all this fancy stuff. So when the judge decides to pierce through that corporate veil, they're going to go after a business trust. And if that business trust don't have $500,000, then guess what? You close shop. And your money is safe. That is what you want. So, like I said, that is one reason that a trust can actually protect you, right? That's one way. Let's talk about the next way, right? Let's talk about the next way, and then we'll probably go ahead and land this plane. So my next question to you is, my next question to you is your trust, right? Your trust can actually protect you from probate. And so a lot of us, we don't know what probate is, right? We've never heard of it, and then we just automatically assume other things. So I'll go ahead and break down that process. But my question to you is, right? You have this big, beautiful house, right? So let's talk about your primary residence. Your primary residence is this big, beautiful house with the white picket fence, and your kids live in that house. You got a 30-year mortgage, and that primary residence more than likely is your largest investment. This house that you live in is in your personal name. So my question to you is, this house that you live in, right? That's in your personal name. If you did not wake up tomorrow, how do you think that that house that's in your personal name is going to be transferred to your children's name or your spouse or whoever you want to receive that property? Let me hear what you got to say. Come off
What,
mute. Let me know. I'm not here by myself.
wouldn't you take it, because you already have beneficiaries? Do you have to have written instructions for the actual trust for it to get transferred?
Wait a minute. Who said that you had a trust? I just said that this house is in your name. We're not
Okay.
talking about beneficiaries. We're not talking about none of that. This house is in your name. As of right now, as of today, the house is in your name. And you didn't wake up tomorrow.
The house is going to probate,
Bank
go to
will
court.
sell the property.
Bro. Okay, my apologies. I thought
The
you
house
said we have
goes to
trust.
probate and the court take over. And it's going to be a
Okay.
long process. It's over with. You don't want to go to court probate. You got to be on it. You got to put it. Plus, you don't. You're going to go through a whole, your kids or whoever think they're going to get that house. It's over with. Yeah.
It's over with. That's it. Okay, boss. See, he know what's up. Okay, listen. Y'all need to be listening to him. Okay, he know what he's talking about. It's over with. Okay, I love it. So that is 1000% correct. So you mean to tell me that this house that I worked so hard for a down payment, that I've been making my monthly payments every single month, right? That automatically in my brain, I think that my son or my daughter is going to inherit the house. You mean to tell me that if I didn't wake up tomorrow, that it's going to take a judge decision that don't know me and that doesn't know my son and doesn't know my daughter, it's going to be up to that stranger if my children get my house? Wow. That's interesting. Why are we allowing this to happen? Do you know that our children are losing their inheritance? Do you know that? They're losing their inheritance because of our ignorance, because we don't know, because we automatically assuming, because we are actually subscribing to this lie. And we're automatically assuming, yeah, I only have one child, so everything's going to my one child. No, your children do not automatically get your house. They do not automatically get the thousands of dollars that you have in your bank account. They don't automatically get your car. That is a lie. Your children are losing their inheritance every single day, and it's your fault because you don't have your affairs in order. Because you are literally allowing the government, you're literally allowing the clerk of courts, the courthouse, to auction your house on their steps. Why are you allowing this to happen? You're allowing this to happen because you don't know. So that's why I'm here to tell you what you don't know, which is that you're going to end up in probate. Your kids are going to end up in probate. It is highly unfortunate. If you have assets, meaning you have a house, you have cash money in the bank, let's just say $500,000. You have a car, you have assets, okay? If those assets are in your personal name, and let's just say that you have a will. Why? Because you thought a will was good enough. A will is not good enough. A will can't do anything for you. Why? Because a will is a wish list. That is your they tell you it's your last wish and testament. That's your last wishes. So what are you wishing for? You are wishing that your son will get your house. So it's not set in stone. You just literally putting a wish down there. So you're putting, I wish my son will get my house. I wish my daughter will get the cash money in my bank account. That is what you're wishing for, okay? So a will cannot own anything, okay? A will is not an entity. A will is an instrument that they're going to take a look at in the probate, and they're going to be like, okay, he wished for his daughter to get the house, but guess what? We're not giving her the house. We're going to sell it so that we can go ahead and send this money to the hospital because he sat up in the hospital for 3 weeks and racked up $300,000 in medical expenses. That's what happens. But you don't know that, right? And so what you need to do is know that a will is a wish list and it will end up in probate, okay? Automatically. There's only one way to avoid probate. The only way to avoid probate is for you to actually create your own estate, for you to create your own trust now while you're living. Why? Because you're going to have a trust anyways. You're going to have an estate anyways. Meaning that if you don't have your affairs in order, and I'm sorry I'm so passionate about this, okay? I'm not yelling at you guys. I love y'all, okay? We could kumbaya later, okay? If you don't have your affairs in order, right? And you go ahead and you don't wake up tomorrow, guess what? The state where you're a resident, that state is going to create an estate for you. So if you're a resident of Texas, guess what? Texas is going to create an estate for you. They're going to call it the John Smith estate, and they're going to transfer all of your assets into that estate. So that fancy house that you got a 30-year mortgage on, that car, that $500,000 in the bank cash that you have, all of that is going into the estate that Texas created for you, when you should have created your own estate while you're living. But since you didn't, Texas did it for you. So you need to know that you're going to have an estate anyways. You either do it now or you let Texas do it for you. And it's not going to end well if you let Texas do it for you. Trust and believe that. It's not going to end the way you want it to end, right? Because this is what Texas is going to do, you guys. Like I said, they're going to create the estate, right? It's a trust. They're going to create the estate. They're going to name it after you. They're going to put your house, your car, and your cash money, your stocks, your crypto, everything in that estate. And now your estate needs to be represented in probate court. Okay, so now they're pulling your estate into court. Okay. And it could be a very ugly battle in court. And you have to understand what's happening during this time, right? Well, your children, they just lost the most important person in their life, which is you. So what are they doing? They're grieving. But instead of you allowing them to grieve in peace, they are being dragged through the court system. Why? Because now they are either fighting the courts to keep mom and dad's house, to get access to the money that she had in her bank account, or they're also fighting each other. Unfortunately, it gets ugly when somebody passes, okay? So they're either fighting each other because they can't get along, or they're fighting the courts to keep what's yours, right? To receive their inheritance, okay? So that's that ugly thing that's happening on the back end. But let's talk about the front end of the probate, right? So now Texas created an estate for you. That estate is now in probate court. So it needs to be represented by a probate attorney. So now your estate has an attorney. It's in probate court. That judge, it's up to that one person, that judge. That judge is going to make the entire decision, and they are going to determine what ends up with your family, right? Or how, how their financial future is going to be, right? So that judge, the first thing that happens that you don't know is the judge is going to pay off all your liabilities, meaning that the judge is going to pay off all of your debt. And the judge is going to open up the door wide open for all the creditors to come. Hey, does John Smith owe anything? Because we want to pay all of y'all off. Student loans from 50 years ago? Yes. Credit card debt? Personal loan from the bank? Yes. Medical bills? Yes. So now all of your liabilities, all of your debt, all of those creditors are being paid, right? So now they're taken from your estate, taken from your estate, taken from your estate. So now the judge paid off all your liabilities, right? And sometimes I've seen it to where you don't have enough liquid cash in the estate, meaning you didn't have that much cash in your bank account to cover those liabilities. So guess what they have to do? They have to sell your house. Your son can't even keep your house. Why? Because you owe Medicare and Medicaid. You didn't even know you owe Medicare and Medicaid, but guess what happens? At the end of life, you're going to rack up a lot of hospital bills, or you might even end up in a nursing home. And there is a lot of expenses that come with that. And so they're going to make claims against your estate. And that's not what you want, right? So then the judge decides, oh, well, we're going to have to put the house up for sale so that we could get the liquid $300,000, and then we can go ahead and give Medicare $150,000. That's what happens, but you don't know that. Why? Because you out here thinking everything's willy-nilly and that your son and your daughter's automatically going to inherit your house. That's the biggest lie that you ever believed. So now, right, now that we know that the judge pays off all your debt, then what happens? Well, your estate is being represented by a probate attorney. The probate attorney is going to take their fees. They got their hands so deep in your estate, you have no clue. Then the probate court has fees. You know, court ain't free. So now the probate court has fees, right? All of this is being taken out of your estate. Whatever is left over is what your children get. Your children get the leftovers. And sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's peanuts, it's crumbs. It's not even what you anticipated. That is not what you want. You don't want your children to get the leftovers. You want for them to receive their entire inheritance. So what you need to do is get your affairs in order so that your children can get what they deserve. So your children can get what you worked so hard for. Why the hell are you working 40 hours every single week to pay off this house and this car and to have a little bit in the bank for then it to all go to waste? No. You literally walking around here talking about you building generational wealth. So you need to make sure that that generation actually receives it. So the way that you're going to do that is by you creating your own estate now while you're living. You have to create a trust now while you're living because you're going to end up with a trust anyways. When you was born, the United States Corporation created a trust for you. When you die, the United States Corporation will create a trust for you. You transition, you died, they created a living entity and put all your stuff in it. Create it now while you're living so you can actually dictate where your assets go. So let's just say that you're smart and that you decided to get your affairs in order and you decided that you're going to actually create a trust. And so now you created the trust, right? The Rose Estates Trust, right? You put all your assets, you put the house, you put the car, and that bank account that's in the trust name has $500,000 in it, right? And now you did not wake up tomorrow. Guess what happens? You died with no assets in your name. You died with zero account balance in your checking account, right? The trust owns everything. The trust owns the house, the car, and the cash. So guess what happens? Your successor steps up to the plate. They pick up where you left off. They continue to operate the trust, right? And the trust is going to continue to be operated by that person, and your children are absolutely fine. Why? Because they're the beneficiaries of your trust. They're going to receive everything. They are going to benefit from the trust, meaning they're going to receive distributions every month, right? They're good. And then guess what? Your children, they don't have to go to probate court. They get to grieve in peace. because nothing has to happen, because there is no transfer that needs to happen. You don't have to go to court because the trust still exists. The trust is the living entity that owns all those assets. You transitioned. So now that you transition, guess what also happens? That debt that you had, right? The hospital bills, the student loans, the credit cards, that debt dies with you. Those creditors, they can't come after your trust. They don't even know the name of your trust. They cannot come after your trust. You are not the trust is not you. That trust owns that house. Those creditors, that mortgage company, Bank of America, they can't come after your trust. Your children receive everything. That is the position that you need to put yourself in. So that's why I'm telling you, it's so vitally important for you to have your affairs in order, you guys. So now that you know about the probate process, there's only one way to avoid probate. And that way is by you setting up your own trust, okay? So let's move on to the next slide. The next slide is the wealth building formula. So let's talk about it, okay? Because I like to talk about money, you guys. So this is how you are actually going to build wealth with the trust, okay? The trust is not only designed for you to protect your assets, it's also designed for you to accumulate more assets, more money, more this, more that, okay? So let's talk about it. Now, I have 3 pillars here. This is the wealth building formula. I have 3 pillars here. The first pillar is structure. The second pillar is credit. The third pillar is invest. So let's talk about structure, you guys, okay? So with structure, it's so vitally important. Excuse me. Oh my God, I need some water. I'm clearing my throat all here. Sorry, you guys. I should have muted. Anyways, it's okay. So let's talk about this, right? Let's talk about structure. It is so vitally important for you guys to be structured the right way, for you to be properly structured. So if you are not structured the right way, just put it in your mind that you have to get restructured, okay? So it's not, so the structure that I'm about to go through, right? If you're not there, just put it in your mind that you need to get restructured, okay? Now, I am a firm believer that you need multiple trusts within your structure, okay? You are not going to put all of your assets in one trust, which means, right, that you're not going to put all of your eggs in one basket, okay? Because that is going to put you in a position that you don't want to be in. So just put that in your mind that you need to have multiple trusts, okay? Now, these are the trusts that I recommend. I recommend that you have a business trust if you're a business owner and entrepreneur, that you have a private family trust if you have personal assets, and that you have a tax-exempt nonprofit trust within your structure, okay? So everyone here should be having a for-profit arm and a nonprofit arm, okay? You need both. You need both if you're intentional about building wealth, okay? If you're not intentional about building wealth, then you don't need both, okay? But this is what we're talking about. So let's talk about the first trust, which is the business trust, okay? The business trust, you can actually utilize this trust in 2 different ways. The first way is, as I mentioned earlier, which is you can utilize it as a holding company. So if you utilize it as a holding company, then that means that it's going to be non-operational, which means that you're going to utilize it in order to hold other legal entities. Those other legal entities are LLCs and corporations. And so because it's holding those legal entities, what's going to happen is it is not going to offer any products or services, okay? It's not going to have employees. It's not going to be operated like a traditional business. It is going to hold the traditional business. The traditional business is the LLC that has the products, the services, and the employees, okay? So that is the first way that you can actually operate a business trust. The second way that you can operate a business trust is by actually setting up a traditional business. So instead of you going ahead and creating an LLC with the Secretary of State, that is a statutory entity, what you can do is you can go ahead and create your own business trust. If you create your own business trust, then you can operate it as a traditional business to where you do offer product services and you have employees, okay? So if you operate it that way, it could be any type of business that you want, real estate, e-commerce, restaurant, whatever it is that you want, okay? So with the business trust, as we mentioned, right, it is going to, for example, it is going to own your other entity. So let's just say that it owns your LLC, right? Your LLC is going to continue to operate as it's been operating, right? And all you're going to do is you're going to remove yourself as the authorized member. You're going to add the business trust as the authorized member. Now, the money that is flowing from that LLC, that is generating from that LLC is going to flow into the business trust. So let's just say that the LLC generated $100,000, right? You will go ahead and somebody's off of mute. Hold on. Elijah, I had to put you on mute. All right, so let's just say that your LLC generated $100,000, right? So if it generated $100,000, right, you would take your normal deductions for your LLC. So, or what you can do is you can do a K-1 distribution and you can distribute all that money to the business trust, okay? So however you want to work it out, okay? So let's just say you did a K-1 distribution, you distributed $100,000 to the business trust. Now the business trust has $100,000 in income, okay? So with the business trust, it actually is required to pay taxes and it's required to file a 1041. So you as a natural person, you are required to file a 1040 with the IRS. The trust is required to file a 1041. So you can already tell that the trust is seen as a separate entity from you. You are 1040, the trust is 1041, okay? So, so just keep that in mind. So now you know that that the trust is having to file a 1041, right? The beautiful thing about these entities is that you are going to spend the money first and you're going to be taxed on the leftovers. And so generally a trust is taxed anywhere between 10% of upwards of 37%. So what you want to do is you want to deduct 100% of your operating expenses. We call them OPEX. And so whatever it costs for you to operate this entity is what you're going to be deducting from your taxes, okay? And so now let's just say that you had $30,000 in operating expenses. So now out of that 100,000, you're deducting, you're doing a tax deduction of 30,000. You have $70,000 left. You have to now pay taxes on the $70,000. That is a lot of money that you're going to be paying in taxes. So one of the beautiful things about a trust, which is why this strategy works so well and you need to implement it within your tax strategy, within your structure, okay? One of the beautiful things about a trust is that it can distribute all of the money to the beneficiary, okay? So meaning that that $70,000 that you now owe taxes on, you can distribute all of it to the beneficiary, and now the beneficiary has to pay taxes on that $70,000, okay? So now at the business trust level, you just did a tax deduction of 30,000 and you did a distribution of 70,000. out of the 100,000. So your tax liability is zero. You literally owe $0 in taxes, okay? Now, who is the beneficiary that just received the 70,000, right? Well, the way that we structure it is we are going to make the family trust the beneficiary of the business trust. Why? Because you're a business owner and entrepreneur, and the money that is being generated from the business needs to be pulled into the family to support the family, okay? And so that's how you're going to do it. You're going to pull that money from the business trust to the family trust to support the family, okay? So that 70,000, you're going to distribute it from the business trust to the family trust. Now, the family trust is going to then receive the 70,000 as income, and the family trust is going to be required to pay taxes on the 70,000. But starting taxes,
Just pull
mute.
out. I'm trying to get my $1,000 credit card.
All right, guys, 1 second. So the family trust just received $70,000, right? And remember, we're starting all over from scratch. So now this is a new entity that just received $70,000. We have to file a 1041. So what we're going to do is we are going to spend the money first and be taxed on the leftovers. I'm going to say it again because you really need to get this into your head. We're going to spend the money first and be taxed on the leftovers, because unfortunately we're taxed the other way around, right? How are we taxed? We are taxed to where we are taxed first and then we spend the leftovers, right? So the trust is the opposite, okay? Which is another reason why you need a trust, okay? So now that we're spending the money first, what happens? 70,000 just came in. We have operating expenses. What do those operating expenses look like? Well, take a look at your family structure, right? What does it cost in order to operate your family? Well, you have a house, right? The house has what? Mortgage, utilities, maintenance, insurance, right? So you are going to deduct all of that from that 70,000, right? Then you have groceries, you have you have let's say tuition, you have all insurance premiums, you have all of this stuff, right? And so you're going to then go ahead and start deducting all of the expenses that it takes in order to run your family, right? Another expense could be you having a board meeting and you going to the Virgin Islands, right? That is an expense for your family trust, right? And so now you get to deduct that as well, right? So you need to be strategic about what your expenses look like, because the goal is for you to get down to zero, right? And so now that we have 70,000 that just came in, we're required to pay taxes on the 70,000, but we need to start doing our tax deductions on what expenses we have. So let's just say that our expenses was a total of 60,000, right? So that means that it cost us 60,000 in order to run our family organization, okay? So now we have $10,000 that's left, right? We can easily pay taxes on $10,000. Or what we can do is we can do a contribution, okay? A contribution is very different from a distribution. So now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a contribution to our tax exempt nonprofit trust. That contribution is considered a donation, okay? And so the family trust is going to donate $10,000 to the tax exempt nonprofit trust, okay? And so on the family trust level, it did a tax deduction of 60,000, and it did a contribution of 10,000, which was equivalent to 70,000, which means that now the tax liability is zero. You're paying zero taxes for the family trust. Okay, now that 10,000 that we just spoke about, that 10,000 went straight into the tax exempt trust as a donation. It was received. Okay, so now we are all done with the family trust. The family trust is designed as an asset holding trust. That means that it's designed to hold all of your personal assets that has nothing to do with business. So your primary residence, your car, your insurance policies, if you have furniture, equipment, if you have insurance policies, I think I said that, stocks, bonds, royalties, crypto, any other type of foreign currencies, if you have any weapons like guns, any jewelry, right? All of those things, even retirement accounts, right? All of those assets are going to be owned by your family trust, okay? So now the next trust that I want to tell you guys about is the nonprofit tax exempt trust. This trust has a lot of other names that you can use. You can call it a church. You can call it a ministry. You can call it a faith-based organization. You can call it an axillary. So what it is it is a trust that is designated as a 508c1a, okay? So it is a nonprofit. It is exempt from federal taxes, meaning that you do not have to pay federal taxes to the IRS. You're automatically exempt. Why? It is a mandatory exception to not filing for a 501c3. So technically, if you want to be exempt from federal taxes, right, you would have to be a 501c3. But this type of trust is a faith-based organization, so you can either use it for religious purposes or you can use it for education purposes. So because it's a faith-based organization, it's a mandatory exception to not having to file. So that means that you don't have to put in an application in order to be exempt. You're mandatory, automatically exempt from federal taxes. Why? Because there is a separation between church and state. And so because that separation exists, you don't have to file federal taxes, okay? So this type of trust is the only trust that is not required to file a 1041 every single year, okay? As long as the money that is coming into the organization is labeled as a donation, as a tithe, or as a gift. If the money is labeled in those three ways, it does not have to file a 1041. Now, if you do have money that's coming into the organization and it's not labeled that way, then it's going to be labeled as income. If this type of trust has more than $5,000 in income, then it does have to file, okay? So we need to make sure that we're doing proper documentation, record keeping, bookkeeping, okay? So now that we know that we have this tax-exempt nonprofit trust, right? We are automatically exempt from federal taxes. We can also qualify to be exempt from state taxes, city taxes, county taxes, sales taxes, property taxes, okay? So just imagine if you were to put your property into this type of entity and now it wipes away $5,000 of annual property taxes, right? So be mindful of the situations that you can put yourself in to reduce heavy taxation. This is what this particular entity is placed in your structure to do. It's placed in your structure to reduce heavy taxations, right? and it's 100% legal, right? So that means that you are able to donate to your own nonprofit, right? These are what we call charitable contributions, okay? And so this is mainly for people who want to reduce their taxes, but that's not the only reason. If you are philanthropic and you have philanthropic endeavors, if you have a ministry, if you have any type of charity, or if you want to donate to other charities, right? So the money that comes into this organization, you can allocate it to anything, meaning you could buy a house with it, you could buy crypto with it, you could buy a business with it, you could buy stocks and bonds with it, or you can put it in other charities, okay? So you have to just keep in mind that with all of these entities, you're able to do charitable contributions to your own entity, okay? So we're all done with structure. Let's move on to the next one, which is credit. So you need to put yourself in a position to where you are using OPM. OPM stands for other people's money, okay? So you are not going to get rich or build wealth by using your own money. That's impossible, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to use other people's money, meaning you're going to use the bank's money. Why? Because the bank is using your money, okay? So you're going to do what the bank does. You're going to use the bank's money in order to build wealth, okay? So there's two things that I want you to know. One is, because you have a nonprofit within your structure, you can qualify for nonprofit grants. You can also qualify for business grants as long as your business qualifies, okay? The second thing I want you to know is that you can build business credit with the business trust. How? Well, the business trust is going to receive an EIN number from the IRS. Any entity that has an EIN number can build business credit. Any entity, okay? So just like your LLC has business credit, the trust can have the same, it's identical. There's no difference, right? It is what it is. So your LLC, the corporation, all of these other entities, they're building business credit. Your business trust can also do the same thing, okay? So that is what you're going to put yourself in a position to do, okay? Why? Because you want to leverage a second credit profile, okay? Credit is absolutely powerful. So you want to leverage a second credit profile because you don't only want to depend on your credit, right? Your personal credit is very different from business credit. With business credit, you can qualify for higher lines of credit. Okay, so on the personal side, your score is between 350 and 850. On the business side, the scoring system is between 1 to 100. So what you want to do is you want to generate that paydex score around 80, and then you want to start getting credit cards and lines of credit so that you can leverage those lines of credit and park that money in places that's going to be income producing, okay, or cash flowing, okay? And so we'll talk about that because it's so vitally, it's so vitally important, okay? So in your mind, think of building wealth with OPM, okay? Other people's money credit, okay? So now let's move on to the next one. The next one is invest, okay? So these are two assets that I recommend. The first asset is an index universal life insurance policy. The second one is real estate. So let's talk about the first one. With the first asset, right? A lot of people, they have bought into this misconception, right? They think that life insurance is supposed to be used when they're dead. But in all actuality, life insurance is supposed to be used when you are living. That's why it's called life insurance. It's not called dead insurance, okay? So there is a lot of living benefits with having life insurance, with these types of policies, okay? And I'll touch on a few of them, okay? So the first thing that I want you to know is that with this type of life insurance policy, right, it is a liquid asset. So the money that you have in your policy is liquid, okay? That means that just like how you can go into the bank and withdraw $1,000, it's the same thing with the policy. You can go tap right into the policy and take out $1,000, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the money that you're going to be accumulating inside of your policy is going to be tax-free. That means that the IRS is not taxing your money and trying to, take a little percentage of it, okay? So that's good. Your money's going to be growing tax-free. Nobody's going to be charging you to grow it, okay? That's powerful. So now with this type of policy, you have two buckets. The first one is a cash value. The second one is a death benefit, okay? So that means that this policy is going to be building what we call cash value. And that cash value is going to be earning compound interest. So how does that happen, right? Well, with the cash value, this is what cash value is. When you pay your monthly premium, right? So let's just say that your monthly premium is $100. When you pay your monthly premium, a percentage of it is going to go to the insurance carrier for the cost of your insurance. The other percentage is going to go to your cash value. So out of that $100, $20 is going to go to the insurance carrier, okay? And that is for the cost of your insurance. The $80 is going to go to your cash value, and that is going to be cash that is just sitting there and accumulating, okay? But the beautiful thing about this type of policy compared to a lot of other policies is this policy actually earns compound interest, okay? Compound interest is very important to have, right? That is that snowball effect where your money, the profit is starting to stack up on top of each other and make more profit. Money is making more money and more money and more money, okay? So this is how it happens. You have cash value that is just sitting in there. And the beautiful thing about this policy is that it actually tracks the index. You see it in the title of the policy, Index Universal Life, okay? The index is referring to an indice. The index is a part of the stock market, okay? So the stock market has many different indices. So you have the Dow Jones. You have the NASDAQ 100. You have the S&P 500. Those are indices within the stock market. So your policy is going to track one of the indices. So usually it tracks the S&P 500. The S&P 500 stands for Standard & Poor 500. That 500 means that it's tracking the top 500 companies in the United States, okay? That is extremely powerful. You have big companies like Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, all of these big companies, okay? So with the S&P 500, whatever the performance is for this indice is what the carrier is going to match for your cash value. So let's just say that the S&P 500 is doing 10%, right? So that means that now what's going to happen is the insurance carrier is going to match the S&P 500, and they're going to give you 10% return on your cash value. So if you have $1,000 in there, now that $1,000 just made 10%. Okay, so that is extremely powerful because you are putting money into a vehicle that is actually going to make you more money. That is the type of investments that you need to get into, or the type of assets that you need to acquire for your trust, okay? So with this, what we're going to do is we're going to have the trust be the owner of your life insurance policy. We're going to have the trust be the payer of the premiums of the life insurance policy. We're going to have the trust be the beneficiary of the life insurance policy, okay? And I'll break it down even further in just a moment, okay? So what you need to do is, with this type of policy, you need to use it in a strategic way to where you are paying yourself first, right? And so a lot of us, and this takes a mindset shift. And what I'm about to explain to you guys, it takes some time for you to build up to this, okay? But you need to put yourself in a position to where you're paying yourself first, because right now we're not doing that. Right now, we're not paying ourselves first. We're paying ourselves last, right? The way that you're living right now, you're paying yourself last, and I'll explain it to you. Because a lot of us, we don't realize, right? So let's talk about it, right? We are subscribed to a system to where we are working 40 hours a week for 40 years, and we are waiting until we're 65 to retire. And so because we're working 40 hours a week, now we only get paid every 2 weeks, right? And so when we get paid by our employer, what is the first thing that happens, right? So I'm talking to you guys, come off mute, let me know what's the first thing that happens when you get paid on Friday.
You're ready to go spend it.
Okay, who's spending it? What's your name?
Get taxed.
Wait, who's spending it? I want to know who's spending it. What?
You know what I mean?
Who is
Pay
that?
bills.
Yeah,
Bills.
exactly. Okay, okay. All right, we spending it and we paying bills. Okay. So that is the second thing that happens. So the first thing that happens is we are actually paying the IRS, right? So the first thing that happens when you get paid is the IRS takes FICA, right? So they take their federal withholdings. So the IRS already has a hand in your paycheck, in your wallet, right? So they get paid. The next is Medicare gets paid. Next is Social Security gets paid. Then you have a 401k contribution. So that is what happens before you even see your paycheck. So you mean to tell me that 4 entities have gotten a portion of my check before I even see my check?
Right.
Exactly. So that is the first thing that happens. So you don't even see your check first, okay? So now that these 4 agencies or entities have gotten their withholdings, right? Then the next thing that happens is, where does that money go? Come on, guys. Come off mute.
Your bank.
Okay, there we go. 16462. So what's your name?
Stella.
Stella?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, beautiful name. I love it. So exactly, that money is directly deposited into the bank. So now the bank gets paid, right? And so Stella, who you bank with?
JP Chase.
Chase.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So you mean to tell me that Chase just received a direct deposit for the thousands of dollars that I just got paid, right? So
Right.
now the money goes straight into Chase Bank. And what is Chase doing with the money?
They just, I guess they use it for business until,
Trading it.
yeah, until I need it,
Okay.
until I need it.
Okay, so the bank is using your money. Okay, so let's just be honest. The bank is using your money, so they are leveraging you. They are leveraging your hard-earned money that you work so hard for, right? So they're leveraging you. So the bank is actually building wealth. The bank is getting rich off of OPM, other people's money. So if the bank is getting rich off of other people's money, do you think that you should also duplicate that process and also get rich off of other people's money, meaning the bank's money? Okay, because what is the bank doing? The bank is actually lending your money out, right? So they're lending it out for mortgages, credit cards, vehicle loans, student loans, right? They're lending the money out, right? Quote unquote, right? So they're lending the money out and then they're charging people 20% 25, 30% in interest, right? And they're lending your money out. So now let me ask you, if your money is quote unquote just sitting there in the bank, how much interest is it generating?
I don't know. I never checked. I don't know.
Most banks don't even give you 1%.
Exactly. So you literally are making 0.0005%. You're not making much. You're really not. Because the fact that you just said, I don't know, means zero, means almost nothing. You probably see $5, which is insignificant.
Right.
So you're not getting any money from the bank, right? And a lot of people think that the bank is, getting rich off of these mortgages and these credit cards. But in actuality, the bank's number one asset is bank-owned life insurance, BOLI. So the bank's number one asset is life insurance policies. So Google it, okay? It's called BOLI, BOLI, bank-owned life insurance, okay? So that means that the bank has a bunch of life insurance policies and they're receiving a bunch of death benefits and they're just continuing to get rich off of people, right? This is a people business, okay? So just be mindful of that, okay? So now that we know that our money is sitting inside a Chase Bank and that we're really getting close to nothing for it, what is the next thing that we do once our paycheck hits Chase Bank? What's the next thing that we do?
Bills.
We just buy, we spend it and take care of our needs, pay bills.
Pay
Yes.
bills.
Okay, absolutely. And you guys are 1000% correct. So once that money hits the bank, the first thing that we do is we pay our mortgage, we pay our rent, we put gas in our car, we buy groceries, right?
Utilities.
We pay utilities, the light bill, right? All of this stuff, right? So we are going ahead and we're paying everyone else, okay? We're paying all of these other companies and entities before we even touch a dollar, before we even see a dollar. So you are literally paying yourself last. How? Because after you're done paying all these bills, you probably have
Nothing left. Yep.
Exactly. You probably have $400 or $500 left. And what are you going to do with that? You just let it sit in the checking account. You don't even do anything with it. You just let it sit there.
Correct.
You don't even park it into a place where it could, it could double and triple, right? You just let it sit right there in the checking account. So this that I just explained to you guys, this is what we call the rat race. This is where we're in this vicious cycle. This vicious cycle where we're doing the same thing day in and day out, where we're doing the same thing week in and week out, where we're doing the same thing month in and month out. We're in this vicious cycle that we've subscribed to, which is work our 40 hours, get paid every 2 weeks, work for 40 years, retire at 65, depend on Social Security. And then at 65, that is when we're supposed to have financial freedom. That's when we're supposed to have location freedom. That's when we're supposed to have, any type of freedom, right? And so we need to get out of this vicious cycle. We need to get out of that hamster wheel that we're on. We need to get out of that. And so the way that you get out of that hamster wheel is by taking a mindset shift. And instead of you continuing to pay all of these companies and agencies first, you need to pay yourself first. Meaning that when money comes into your bank account, what you need to do is you need to park it into a location where it is actually going to grow and make more money. So what you're going to do is you're going to actually park it into your index universal life insurance policy. So that money, that paycheck is going to flow into your policy, okay? And so it takes time for this to build up. That's why I'm telling you, if you're not structured like this, put it in your mind that you need to get restructured. This is not an overnight thing. This is not a get rich quick thing. This is the long-term game, okay? So what you need to do is with this paycheck, you need to funnel that money into your index universal life insurance policy. So now let's just say you got paid $4,000. That $4,000, before you pay your mortgage, utility bills, your groceries, you're going to put that money into your life insurance policy. Your cash value inside of your policy is going to go up. Okay, that means that it's going to go up by that $4,000. That $4,000, you're parking it into a vehicle where it's going to earn more money. That is how you're going to build wealth, by having your dollar go out and work for you. We need to get out of the mindset of us having to work for money. We are done with that. You don't have to clock in and clock out for money. What you need to do is park your money into a place where it is going to clock in and clock out for you. Meaning that every single dollar that you deploy out there to go work, it is going to go out and work. And it's going to come back and bring 10 cents with it. It's going to go out and work. It's going to come and bring back 25 cents with it. That is what you're going to do. And over time, it's going to compound. The more and more money is going to make more money, and more money is going to make more money. Okay, that is what you need to do. That is how you're going to get out of the rat race. That is how you're going to get out of the position of living paycheck to paycheck, by paying yourself first, right? So that money is going to funnel into your IUL, right? And your IUL, the cash value is going to earn compound interest, which is beautiful, right? But that money that you just put inside of your IUL, let's just say that you need it, right? You need it to pay the mortgage, right? What you can do is you can borrow against the cash value that's inside of your IUL, meaning that you can request a loan from the life insurance carrier for the money that you need, okay? So let's just say that you wanted to request a loan for $3,500 out of that $4,000. So now the carrier is going to look at your cash value. They're going to say, okay, she has $4,000 in there, so we're going to lend her $3,500 from our money. So that means that they're going to dig into their reserves, they're going to dig into their bank account, and they're going to give you a loan for $3,500 based off of your cash value. So your $4,000 is sitting inside of your cash value, earning compound interest, earning 10% for the stock market. And their $3,500 is just direct deposited back into your bank account for you to then be able to use on the bills and necessity that you need to use it for. And the beautiful thing about your IUL policy is that there's a death benefit attached to it, which means that that $3,500 loan, you do not need to pay it back. Why? Because that money is automatically going to be deducted from your death benefit, okay? So that is the concept of paying yourself first, and that's the position that you need to put yourself in as soon as possible, okay? So the next thing that I want to tell you guys about is the next asset is the real estate, okay? So let's just briefly talk about real estate. So I am in love with real estate. I have been investing in real estate for 10 years now, okay, since I was 25 years old. So with real estate, what I need you to know is that a trust can own real estate, okay? And a trust can also qualify for a mortgage, okay? So what you want to do is you want to put the trust in a position to where it's able to sustain itself. You do not want the trust to be depending on your W-2 income. You don't want to put yourself in a position to where you're pouring your W-2 income into the trust. The trust needs to sustain itself. And the way that the trust is going to do that is by acquiring income producing assets that are cash flowing, okay? So one of the assets that we use is real estate, okay? Now, with this type of investment, right, what you're going to do is you're going to acquire an investment property, okay? This investment property could be a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, okay? Now, with this investment property, what you're going to do is you're going to have the trust qualify for a mortgage. The type of mortgage that you want to acquire is a DSCR loan. DSCR stands for debt service coverage ratio. That is an investment loan that entities get for investment properties, meaning properties that you are not going to live in, okay? Properties where you have a tenant and it's cash flowing, okay? So with the DSCR loan, they are going to give you up to 80% of the purchase price. So that's a good deal because now all you have to do is come up with 20%. So how is it that you're going to come up with 20% to be able to acquire this investment property? Well, remember, let's rewind, right? The second pillar is credit. So what we were doing in the meantime, while we're building up our estate portfolio, is we are actually building business credit. Remember, we have that EIN, we're building business credit. So let's just say that you were able to qualify for a credit card. This credit card is going to give you $50,000. Remember, we said that businesses get higher lines of credit than personal people. Okay, so that means your business is going to get a credit card for $50,000. You are going to leverage that credit card in order to acquire an asset. So what you're going to do is you're going to strip that credit card. You're going to take out that $50,000 from that credit card. But before you use it as a down payment, what you want to do is you want to funnel that money into your index universal life insurance policy, which means that that $50,000 that you just pulled out of that credit card is going to be parked inside of your cash value inside of your IUL. And your cash value is going to go up by that $50,000. And now you're going to turn around and you're going to request a loan from the carrier. Your $50,000 is going to stay inside of your IUL and it's going to be earning compound interest because it's tracking the S&P 500. And you're going to borrow $48,000 from the life insurance company, from their money, their reserves, their bank account. So now they have done a direct deposit into your bank for the $48,000. So now you have the $50,000 working inside of your IUL. You have it back in your bank account. You're then going to use it for a down payment on real estate, which is extremely powerful, right? Because what you are doing now is you're getting the debt service ratio loan, right? The DSCR loan for 80%, right? And then the other 20% is coming from the business credit card. So you just acquired a rental property, a multi-family for $0 down, meaning that you bought real estate without using any of your own money. What did you use? You used OPM. Please, I'm telling you, it takes a mindset shift for us to be able to strategically do what we need to do to build generational wealth. So you just used a mortgage for 80%. And the other 20% came from a credit card, okay? So now you have a piece of real estate that is owned by the trust, okay? So now this piece of real estate, right? Let's just say it's the first of the month. Your tenants are paying you the rent. What is the first thing that you're going to do with the rent?
Index fund.
Say it again.
You put it in an index funds.
In the IUL, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. She's absolutely 100% correct. So we're going to put it in the IUL policy, right? So let's just say $4,000 just came in from your rental property. So you're going to place that $4,000 into the IUL. Your cash value is going to go up. Then you're going to borrow out whatever that you need, right? So let's just say it's $3,800. You're going to borrow that back out. You're going to pay the mortgage. you're going to pay the credit card, and whatever is left over, you're going to leave it inside of the trust, okay? That is going to be used for operating expenses or just to build up the net worth of the trust, okay? So this is a strategy that you want to deploy in order to build that generational wealth, okay? Because like I said, the trust is so very powerful, but you have to have all the right tools. And we'll talk about those tools, okay? So now a lot of us, we never ask ourselves this question. We never ask ourselves, how am I going to transfer the wealth that I'm creating, right? You are literally walking around here talking about you're building generational wealth, right? But you don't have the tools to build the generational wealth. So we'll talk about these tools. So right now, what you need to do is you need to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. And I'm going to say that again, because I really need you to get this. You need to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. That is what stewardship is. Stewardship is you being a good steward of the assets that you have in your control. Okay? So that means that you have this house, this car, this cash. So you need to make sure that these assets are placed in the right location, that they're properly taken care of, that they're properly secured for the next generation. You need to operate in stewardship versus what you're operating in right now. Right now, you're operating in ownership. Ownership is a dangerous game, and you need to get out of that game, okay? Because the game wasn't designed for you to win. So the way that you get out of it is right now, because you're operating in ownership, you are walking around here boasting about being the proud owner of this house, the proud owner of this car. So you're operating in ownership, right? But remember what we said, right? That's dangerous because that house is designed to outlive you. If you didn't wake up tomorrow, that house is still going to be there. Literally, that structure is still going to be there. So what you truly want is not ownership, right? What you truly, truly, truly want is control. You want control over the house, right? It's not that I want to own the house, is I want to control the house while I'm living. And you can actually get that by using a trust. So the trust is going to own the house and you're going to control the house. That is the way that you need to be structured, you guys, okay? So operate in stewardship versus ownership, okay? Let's talk about the second thing, which is TCUs. TCUs stands for Trust Certificate Units. Trust Certificate Units are the same things as stock certificates. So, for example, you know how stock certificates represent ownership in a corporation? Well, TCUs represent beneficial interest in a trust. So with a trust, you don't have an owner of a trust, okay? So trusts don't have owners. Why? Because a trust is seen as a living entity. You are seen as a living entity. You do not have an owner. A trust does not have an owner. Now, the trust has beneficiaries which have beneficial interests. These beneficiaries receive trust certificate units. That is how they are able to prove that they have beneficial interests. So let me break it down a little bit further for you. So with your trust, right, this is how you're going to transfer your wealth. With your trust, it's going to create 100 trust certificates. These 100 trust certificates are going to be distributed to your beneficiaries. So let's just say that you have 4 children. Well, your 4 children, they're going to receive TCUs. So let's just say you want it to be equal. And so each of your children, you're going to give them 25 TCUs each, okay? So now each beneficiary has 25 TCUs, which represents 25% of beneficial interest in the trust. Let's just say that the trust has a net worth of $1 million. And one of your beneficiaries has that 25 TCUs, right? That 25 TCUs represents 25% of the beneficial interest. And since the net worth is $1 million, it is equal to $250,000 of that $1 million of net worth. So that is how you're going to be in a position to where you're transferring wealth, okay? So you're going to set up a trust. You're going to put your assets in a trust. You're going to distribute TCUs to your beneficiaries. That is how they're able to say, hey, I have a percentage in this estate. Okay, that is how the wealth is going to be transferred in order for it to be protected and in order for you to avoid capital gains tax, death tax, inheritance tax, estate tax, all of these different taxes, okay? So the next thing I want to talk about is preservation of wealth, because I know that that is something that we don't think about. So the last thing on your mind is, how am I going to preserve my wealth, right? We are so focused on making the money. We are so focused on working and buying the house and doing all these things that we never ask ourselves, how am I going to make this money last the 2nd and 3rd generation? How am I going to make sure that this asset lasts 10, 15 generations that's actually preserved? We don't ask ourselves this question. And so what we need to do is, because how many times is it that we see it, right? That we have celebrities, we have famous people, famous families, athletes, actors, right? We have these people that we see that they've made $100 million, right? And they either blow it in their lifetime, or it doesn't even last the 2nd and 3rd generation. The reason why that happens is because they did not have the tools to preserve their wealth. So there are 2 tools that you need in order to preserve your wealth. The first tool is a trust. You need a trust if you're intentional about preservation of wealth. The second tool that you need is the life insurance policies, okay? And so this is how you're actually going to work it. So the first, the first thing is that your trust, right? Your trust has a lot of assets. Your trust has a house, right? Your trust has a car, your trust has bank accounts, right? So you have to understand that your trust insures all of its assets. So the trust has homeowners insurance for the house. The trust has automobile insurance for the car. The trust has FDIC insurance for the bank account, right? So if the trust has all of these assets, and all of these assets have insurance policies, right? The trust also has what we call a human asset. The human assets in the trust are you and the beneficiaries and the future beneficiaries. So the trust also has to ensure the human assets. You are what we call human capital. Why? Because you're the MVP. You are the most valuable player in this entire estate. Why? Because you are the trustee. You are the person who is controlling this entire thing. You're the one that's in control of the assets. You're the one that's making sure the money is growing. You're the one that's making sure that the assets are are being preserved, right? And so because you're the most important person in this entire trust organization, the trust needs to insure you. Because if anything happens to you, guess what? The trust is devastated. The trust is suffering loss. So that means that the trust needs to be compensated for that loss. So because the trust needs to be compensated for that loss, that means that the trust is going to take out a life insurance policy on you, and the trust is going to be the owner of the policy to control it, the paying the premiums, so financially responsible, and also the beneficiary, so that death benefit is going to go straight to the trust. Meaning that if you didn't wake up tomorrow and you had a death benefit of $2 million, that $2 million is going to go straight to the trust fund. That death benefit is going to go straight to the trust fund. And guess what? The trust is now replenished. The trust fund is now replenished with $2 million. That is how you're going to ensure that the wealth that you're creating today is going to be preserved for many generations. There is no way for you to be building generational wealth without having the tools, meaning a trust and life insurance. So the trust is going to be responsible for taking out a policy on the trustee, all of the trustees, for the beneficiaries, and all of the future beneficiaries. So those future beneficiaries, those are your kids, right? The ones that are not born yet, right? And so these individuals, we call them trust fund babies. So now when a trust fund baby is born into the trust organization, guess what happens? The trustee actually takes out a life insurance policy on that baby. So as soon as that baby turns 30 days old, that baby has a life insurance policy. And the trustee, right, the trust is now going to be paying the premiums, $100 a month, right, into that trust fund baby's life insurance policy, okay? And so now let's just say fast forward into the future. That trust fund baby, also known as a beneficiary, is 18 years old, right? Think about all the things that happens when that trust fund baby's 18, right? They're going away to college, so they got a lot of expenses. They're moving out of the house and living on their own. They're also getting their first car, right? So let's just say that that trust fund baby wants to get their first car. They can easily go down to the dealership. They can pull their credit. They can get into a vehicle loan, paying, $30,000, right, for that car. And they can get into, a car note, $900 a month, right? And so that can be the normal process for that person. But because this is a trust fund baby, and that person is a beneficiary in a trust, that beneficiary can go to the trust, and that beneficiary can request a loan from the trust. So the trust can give loans to the trustees and beneficiaries. The trust can receive loans from the trustees and beneficiaries. So what we mean is that beneficiary can go to the actual trust and request a loan for the $30,000 so that they can buy the car. So now the trustee, which is you, right, is going to write a check for $30,000, hand it to that trust fund baby. That trust fund baby is then going to go ahead and buy their car cash, okay? And instead of the trust fund baby paying the dealership and getting wrapped up into payments, paying 30% in interest, what they're going to do is they're actually going to make smaller payments of $300 to the trust, and the trust is going to charge them 2%, right? And so now this trust fund baby is paying $300 a month to the trust and building up that responsibility. But let's just say that that trust fund baby decides to default, and they're like, "Ugh, I don't want to pay the trust $300 a month anymore." Well, what happens is that loan that was received is actually a risk-free loan. And the reason that it's risk-free is because the money did not come from the trust fund directly. The money actually came from that trust fund baby's life insurance policy. So remember that policy, we had been building it up, right, for the last 18 years. And so that policy has been accumulating cash value. That cash value has been compounding and earning compound interest for the last 18 years. So there's hundreds of thousands of dollars in there, if not $1 million. And so what happened is the trustee went ahead and borrowed and took out a loan from the life insurance carrier against that life insurance policy, against that beneficiary's life insurance policy. And so because that life insurance policy had the cash value in there, that $30,000 was directly deposited into the trust fund, and the trustee then wrote a check to the trust fund baby for that amount. So that money originated from their policy. And so that loan doesn't need to be paid back because that money is going to be directly deducted from the death benefit, which means that when that trust fund baby transitions, right, when they expire, their death benefit of $5.5 million is going to go straight into the trust fund. And the trust is going to be replenished with $5.5 million. Now you can imagine how you're setting up every single generation with preservation of wealth, because every single generation is going to have a trust-owned life insurance policy. And those death benefits are going to go straight to the trust. And that money is going to grow and compound in the trust over time. So that wealth is going to be preserved for many generations, as long as you have the tools. So you need the tools, okay? So these are the books that I recommend. I recommend What Would the Rockefellers Do? That is a really, really, really good book teaching you guys on the connection between trust and life insurance, okay? The next one is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2. This teaches you about trusteeship. The next one is Family Wealth, which teaches you how to run your family like a business. So it's very important for you to run your family like a business, right? Because you are the CEO of your family. Your spouse is the CFO of your family. Your children are the employees of the business. So every single family should be running their organization that way. And then the last one is the Complete Book of Trust, which teaches you about the different types of trust. Not every single trust is the same. So that's why I told you at the beginning of the call, it's very important for you to be able to pick the right trust for your business, pick the right trust for your family, okay? So what I want to do is I want to show you a quick video on a trustee that actually took action on the information that I shared tonight.
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christina, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while, and there are a number of people offering trust these days, and I guess that's the big thing. Don't own anything, control everything. That kind of, I didn't say it correctly, but that is the sentiment. And so it seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions, things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you. And thank you, Mondo. That was a great explanation of infinite banking. I know a number of people are talking about that, but they make it so complex. And his presentation was nice and succinct and very informative. So this has been an overall great experience. I definitely will recommend you to others.
So take action on the information that I provided you guys with tonight, because a trust is so powerful and every single person here needs a trust. A lot of people think that they need $1 million in order to set up a trust. That is the biggest, fattest lie. You do not need $1 million in order to set up a trust. And at the end of the day, like I told you earlier in this call, you're going to end up with a trust anyways, whether you like it or not, right? So you might as well create one now while you're living so that you can actually have control over your assets and over your legacy, okay? Because you're not working so hard to leave nothing behind. You're working so hard so that you can leave a legacy for your family. And it's so powerful when you can actually leave them with a set of rules and regulations and with the tools that they need in order to continue your legacy, okay? So a trust is actually, it could be your new way of doing business. It could be a new way of you solving any financial problems that you have, you getting out of the paycheck to paycheck, rat race lifestyle. It could also be your new way of protecting all of your assets and even saving thousands of dollars on taxes. So the sky is the limit when it comes to you actually operating the trust, right? You want to treat this like as if you are running this big time organization, like you running a Facebook or Amazon, right? You don't want to treat this like no little small mom and pop shop, because this is not what that is, right? We don't play about our last name. We don't play about our legacy. So you are now in a position to where you get to set up your legacy that's going to last hundreds and hundreds of years, right? How come we know about all of these famous last names and these people haven't been living for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? That is the position that you're putting yourself in as well. So with that being said, let's work together, you guys. I do have a program that teaches you step by step on how to actually create your own legacy, okay? So I have 3 different offers here. The first one is do it yourself. So I do have a course. And inside of my course, you'll learn step by step on how to actually create your trust entities, okay? My course comes with 3 different types of trust. It is the 3 trusts that I explained to you guys earlier in this call: the business trust, the family trust, and the nonprofit tax exempt trust. So when you enroll into the course, it comes with 43 video modules. With these video modules, you're going to get the video trainings that teaching you step by step about what a trust is and how to actually set up these trust contracts. You're also going to get templates to the trust contract where you're going to get to customize them. And in a moment, I'll show you what one of them look like so that you can understand a little bit better, right? So you also get lifetime access to the course, right? So we're not going to only give you 1 year and then kick you out. You get lifetime access. So in 2-3 years down the line, when you want to set up another trust randomly, you're able to do so, okay? So the next thing is that you get all the resources and ebooks that you need. So all of the books that I just recommended on the previous slide, all of those books are available for you electronically. Some of those books are valued at over $800, right? If you try to go on Amazon and buy it. But with our program, you get them electronically, complimentary, okay? And then we also give you all the resources that you need, meaning that if you need to file taxes, we give you the forms that you need. If you need to open up a bank account, we give you the forms and the documents that you need. If you need to go ahead and transfer your house into the trust, we give you the template that you need, the quick claim deed template. If you need to go ahead and put your LLC into the trust, we give you the template that you need. We show you step by step actually how to do it, right? So all of the resources that you need, that you're going to need when you're actually operating a trust, we provide you with all of those resources. So we literally help you step by step. We show you step by step from A to Z how to operate a trust, okay? It also comes with a community. So we have over 900 trustees in our community. And so you get access to these trustees, okay? These people have been trustees for years, okay? They have their house in a trust. They have trust bank account. They have credit cards for the trust. They have all these things. You get access to them. These are your community members. These are individuals that are like-minded individuals that are also operating in the same space that you're operating in. So we have a private Facebook community for all of our trustees. We also have a Telegram chat, okay? This Telegram chat is blowing up on your phone all day long because these trustees are talking to each other, okay? And so you get access to individuals that are in your city, that are in your state, okay, and that are doing what you are doing or intending to do. So it's very powerful. We are very intentional about building our community, and we meet, usually we meet once a week, okay? So we have master classes that we provide you guys with, usually either once or twice a month, right? And we have educators who come in and teach. So for example, we have a master class tomorrow. Our masterclass is going to be on creative real estate financing, okay? So we have one of our educators who's going to come in and teach you how to acquire real estate zero down using subject to. Do you know what subject to is? Well, if you don't know what subject to is, guess what? You are going to be in the masterclass absolutely for free. We don't charge for no masterclasses. All we want to do is provide you with the resources that you need so that you know how to acquire these assets, okay? So that's tomorrow, but anyways, let's continue about today, right? So anyways, the course is only $997, okay? Let's talk about the second option. So the second option is done with you. Done with you is where we do it together, you guys. And so that is where we have a workshop. The workshop is one entire week long. It is from Monday through Friday, from 11 in the morning to 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Sometimes we go a little bit over because of Q&A. I literally do not get off of the Zoom call until every single question is answered, okay? So what we do is we meet on Zoom Monday through Friday. On Monday, we focus on the business trust. The business trust is 52 pages, you guys. And guess what I do? I break down every single paragraph in that trust indenture so that you can understand the contents of the trust. You can't walk around here operating a trust without knowing what's inside of your trust. You need to know what's inside of the trust content. So that's why I break every single down, everything so that you can understand it, so that you can feel empowered, like, yes, I can definitely operate this because I know what's inside of the trust, right? So on Monday, we only focus on the business trust, and I show you step by step how to customize it for your business. And then we dive into Q&A where I answer all of your questions. Now, Q&A is so powerful because you have to understand it's done in a group setting. So just like how we're on Zoom right now on a group, right? There are individuals in the group that are like-minded individuals. And so they're asking questions that you didn't even know you wanted to know. And so now you're learning more because you're doing it with other individuals, okay? So it's extremely powerful to be in that space and place, okay? On Tuesday, we set up the family trust together. So we break down every single paragraph. The family trust is 27 pages. We break down every single paragraph. I teach you how to actually set it up and customize it for your family, okay? You put in your children as beneficiaries, okay? And then after that, we dive into Q&A. On Wednesday, we focus on the nonprofit tax-exempt trust together. So I show you step by step how to fill that out, okay? So that trust constitution is 62 pages, okay? And so with that, once we're done with breaking down every single paragraph, then I show you how to get your tax exempt EIN number with the IRS. And for those of you guys that want to become ordained, I show you how to become an ordained minister if you're going to be operating it as a ministry, okay? And then on Thursday, we focus on getting our business trust EIN. Then we focus on doing a board meeting for the trust, right? There are so many times where I see people that are operating businesses and they never have a meeting for their business. You've never documented that you've had a meeting for your business, right? And so we don't show you the wrong way of doing things. We show you the right way of doing things. We provide you with a template so that you can document that you had a meeting for your trust, okay? And so we also show you step by step how to open up a bank account. And then we provide you with a promissory note so that you are able to document how much you're going to fund the trust with, okay? Documentation is super important, and you want to have, you know, you want to be able to cross all your T's and dot all your I's, okay? So with that being said, the last thing that happens is one of our educators comes in and teaches you about business credit and business funding. Remember, OPM. I wasn't talking about it for no reason. We give you hours of training on how to acquire OPM, because that is how you're going to build up the assets and acquire these assets for the trust, okay? If you're intentional about building a legacy, do not worry about using your own money. You have to use OPM. We have educators with decades of experience who have gotten people millions of dollars in funding, okay? And they come in and teach you step by step. Okay, so with that being said, they come in and educate you, and then we dive into Q&A. And then Friday is the very last day of the workshop. So on Friday, what we do is we focus all on assets, okay? Transferring your assets into the trust. Remember, I told you that's the most important step. If your assets are not in the name of the trust, they're not protected, okay? So we show you step by step. So the first thing that we do is we take an inventory of the assets. You need to know which assets that you have that qualify to go inside the trust. You need to know which assets that you have that don't qualify to go inside of the trust. And sometimes you find out that you had assets that you didn't even remember about, okay? Old 401ks and HSAs, right? So you do an asset inventory first. Then we actually focus on transferring assets. The first asset that we transfer is real estate, okay? So if you have land, a house, condo, anything like that, what you need to do is you need to redeed that property into the name of the trust. So we provide you with the quick claim deeds. We show you how to fill it out, and then we show you how to submit it with the county recorder's office for your local county, okay? So that they can update the public records to show that the trust is the owner of that house. Then we transition into your vehicles. So we show you step by step how to fill out the bill of sale so that you can submit it to the DMV so that they can transfer the title of your vehicle from your name into the name of the trust. And then we show you how to put your businesses, specifically your LLCs and corporations, into the trust, right? So first we document a business purchase agreement so that you guys are able to remove the liability from yourself, because right now you're liable and you know that. So you want to document that the trust is 100% liable of the business. And then we show you how to do the amendment with the articles of organization with the Secretary of State so that you can remove yourself and you can add the trust. So we show you step by step on how to do that, okay? And then the very last thing is we have one of our educators who has over 15 years of experience in the insurance industry. And so she's going to come in and teach you step by step on how to actually set up these policies, right? The life insurance policies for you and your beneficiaries, and how to have the trust be the owner and the payer and the beneficiaries, and how to use it to not only eliminate debt, but to build wealth with the policies. That's what you want to learn, okay? And it needs to be structured the right way to where it's high cash value, low death benefit, okay? But people don't tell you that. They just try to keep everything a secret, okay? But we don't keep anything a secret here. Everything that we know, you know, okay? So with that being said, the workshop starts next week. So it's next week, Monday through Friday, 11 in the morning to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, okay? And with the workshop, like I said, you get access to the course, okay? So you're still gonna get the course. You have lifetime access to not only the course, but the workshops. So every single time that we do a workshop, you can join the workshop, okay, for the rest of your life and then for the rest of my life, okay? So that means that we do them every single month. So April, May, June, July, December 2026, you can join all of the workshops, okay? So we have some of our people who's been with us since 2021. They still jumping in there from time to time, okay? So with that being said, we hold you accountable. So doing the workshop is extremely powerful because not only do we hold you accountable, not only do we hold your hand through the whole process and you don't have to do it by yourself, right? But also once you're done with the workshop, then you'll book a call with me and I will double check all of your documents, okay? Before you go and get your trust notarized, before you go and open up your bank account, before you transfer your house, okay? I'll be your second set of eyes. So that's extremely powerful. So that's why you should definitely do the done with you. Now, you get access to the course, the community, and the Telegram chat, okay? And you just get that sense of security to know that everything is done correctly. So the workshop is only $2,500. And then the very last option is if you want to do private sessions, that's do it one-on-one, where it's just me and you privately on a Zoom, okay? And so I break down the trust for you and you get that individualized support. So that's usually for people who have multiple assets, right? They have multiple businesses, okay? And so they don't want to set up the trust themselves. So they'll have my team set up the trust for them. And you still get access to the workshops, you still get access to the course, but you get individualized support, extended support too, okay? We dive more into investments, we dive more into acquiring assets with the one-on-one. So the private sessions are $10,000, you guys, okay? And so it's multiple private Zoom calls. Usually the minimum is 5, so it could be 6, 7, 8, just depending on your structure, okay? Because we don't end it until you are all set up and restructured, okay? So if you guys are interested, then all you have to do is go to our website. So I'll show you that. So this is our contact information, okay? So you see the number that's on the screen. You can call the number, you can text the number, okay? So my team will answer. And if you have any questions, you can text us, you can call us. This is the website. The website is wealthytrustee.com. We teach you how to become a wealthy trustee, okay? We give you all the tools and all the resources, and we connect you with all the right people. You can send us an email. You can also visit us on social media, okay? So what I want to do is for the people who are on the call, right? What I want to do is I want to go ahead and offer you guys 50% off for the next 48 hours, okay? So based off of these prices that you see right here, right? So the workshop, 2,500, you slash that in half, it's 1,250, right? For the course, 997, you slash that in half, it's 498, right? So in the next 48 hours, if you take action, all you have to do is go to our website, wealthytrustee.com. You have to put in that discount code TRUST50, okay? It's all one word, okay? Trust and then the number 50, okay? So you should see it inside of your chat, and that that is going to be for the next couple of days up until the workshop starts, you guys, okay? So what I want to do is I want to show you what the course looks like. I also want to show you what a trust looks like, and then we can dive into Q&A. And I'm so sorry that I took so long. I usually don't take this long. So this is what a, oh wait, hold on one second. Let me go back here. This is what, this is the course, you guys, okay? So if you guys are interested in doing it yourself, or if you get into do it yourself or the workshop or the private sessions, you still get access. So like I said, it's 43 video modules. So the way that we start is we start after we've gone through the induction, we go through trust entity. So you learn what a trust is step by step, right? You learn about the different parties, the grantor, trustee, beneficiary, successors, protectors, the benefits of the trust and the different types of trust. Then we dive into the tax exempt trust. So we go through the trust constitution and the bylaws and teach you how to open up an EIN. Then we go through the family trust. So we go through declaration and bylaws. We go through the same thing with the business trust for the indentures. Then we go through tax strategies, you guys, okay? So you need to learn these tax strategies if you're intentional about building generational wealth. So you need to learn how to operate tax exempt, okay? So we teach you that. You need to learn about the different entities and them being for-profit and non-profit, okay? You need to learn what to consider as distributable net income. We teach you that, okay? You need to learn how to avoid abusive tax evasion. We don't teach you that, okay? So we teach you how to avoid it, okay? So next, we dive into asset protection. Asset protection is the only reason why you're here, okay? So like I told you, you're going to take an inventory of your asset. Then you're going to learn how to actually open up a bank account, how to open up a brokerage account for the trust so that you can invest in stocks and bonds, how to transfer your house, your car, your insurance policies, your LLCs and other business structures, and how to have board meetings. So that's super important, okay? People are not teaching you how to actually operate a trust. And so you're just walking around with a stack of papers and don't even know how to use it, okay? It's extremely powerful. You need to learn how to use it. So then we teach you about wealth creation, okay? So with wealth creation, we teach you how to actually build that credit and then how to invest it in the stock market and how to use it with the life insurance policy so that you could be your own bank, right? So it's very important that you build your own banking system, which we call infinite banking, okay? So that means that you have the trust be the owner of the policies and you can use your policies to hold majority of your cash. 90 to 90% of your cash or your net worth should be inside of your life insurance policies, not in the bank, okay? The bank only has FDIC for $250K. If you have $1 million in the bank, but only $250,000 is insured, you're already upside down 750. Okay, so don't take those chances. You want majority of your liquid cash to be inside of your life insurance policies, and we teach you that. So the wealth preservation. So we show you how to get a legacy crest. Remember, this is all about building legacy. And then we have all the resources that I told you that you need, okay? Every single template that you need, paperwork, documentation, right? Record keeping is here. And then all of your ebooks is here, okay? And so this is what an actual trust template looks like. So this is our cover page. And then everything that you see in red is what is going to be customized, okay? So you're going to be customizing all of these different sections. So these sections are provisions inside of the trust. These are the rules and regulations inside of the trust. This is what I tell you makes you bulletproof, right? You operating in irrevocable trust that's going to actually hold up in court and that they can't penetrate through the trust, okay? So we show you how to customize it because that's the most important thing. So with that being said, I'm all done. My throat is a little dry, but what I want to do is I want to dive into Q&A just to answer any questions that you guys might have. And hold on one second. And if you guys are interested in enrolling, like I said, the link is inside of the chat. And if you guys don't have the entire amount to enroll, don't worry. What you can do is you can put a deposit down. The deposit is only $200 and that will hold your position for you to receive the 50% off, okay? So that we'll be able to honor your rate. So you can go ahead and put a deposit down, and then after that you can customize a payment plan. So we do have payment plan options available as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and answer any questions that you might have. I see Felix. Is it Lazanne? Is it Lazanne Felix? I see your hand up. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, does anybody have a question? You can raise your hand.
I have.
Okay, go ahead.
Stella. So I know you said the class starts at from 11 to 2 p.m. That's next week, right?
Correct.
What if I mean I do want to register definitely. But what if, because some of us, I mean I for one will be at work and I live in New York.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of people they still do it while they're working. So we do it on Zoom. So like if you have like headphones, you could like listen in and then you can put any questions that you have inside of the chat and we're still able to answer your questions. And then all of the sessions are recorded. So if you have to like log off early because you're at work, then The session is recorded and you can go back to the recording and then you let us know what questions that you have based off of the recording as well. So all of the sessions are recorded and you have lifetime access to recordings.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other questions? All right, Dee.
Hi. So if I
Hi.
got it now, could I do the workshop a different month? Because I'm still in the process of dissolving my LLC.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Yeah, you have lifetime access to the workshop. You can do it at any point in time. So we run the workshops pretty much every 4 weeks. So once a month. So you can do the one in April or May.
okay, thank you. One more question, please. With the 508, I still want to research if it's the right way for me to go with my business. Do any of those books get into that?
They don't. So you want to go based off of, you want to go directly to the IRS so that you can look up the 508.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody else have any other questions? And I'll also look inside of the.
Yes,
Go ahead.
my name's Elizabeth. I'm calling, I'm trying to find out. I have an LLC. I haven't been using it as of yet because of different reasons. But I was thinking about getting a holding company to go ahead and hold the assets in. Now, does the the trust replace the holding company, or if I had it set up that way, would I have to have the trust? Would I have to have the holding company hold the assets in the trust?
Okay, that's a good question. So the business trust will replace the need for a holding company. So some people who already have a holding company, they don't want to dissolve it because of the history and age. So they'll leave it and they'll have the business trust own the holding company. But if you don't have a holding company, you don't have to establish one. You can just establish the business trust, and the business trust will act as your holding company and will hold the LLC as well as the assets that belong to the LLC. So if you have like a commercial unit, if you have a commercial vehicle, if you have any like inventory, then you can have that directly be owned by the business trust.
I see. And then any vehicles or anything like that, it has to be leased to the LLC.
No. Yeah, so you would lease any assets. So the LLC would be able to will do a lease for any of the assets that they want to use. So the house, not the house, but like the building, if you have a brick and mortar, or the business vehicles.
Okay. Now, for instance, when you're saying like everyday things like brick and mortar, as you were saying, if you do brick and mortar, even if you're doing internet, just internet or something like that, or both, you would go ahead and have those transactions go through the LLC, and then it would go to whatever your daily expense was would go directly to like your holding company or your trust.
So the expenses, so the actual business operations are going to be held with the business. So the business is the one that has the expenses like the utilities and all that stuff, the leases, all that stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, and all of the day-to-day operations, not the trust.
Okay. And when you're going on ahead and doing the three trusts, that's what I was going to ask too, because I know at some point, if somebody is doing wholesaling, you know what I mean, you wouldn't want it, that wouldn't go under a irrevocable because you can't sell it.
You can sell any asset that's inside of an irrevocable trust.
Really?
Yes, absolutely, 1000%. So the person who can't sell it is the grantor. So that's why you're not going to put yourself in the grantor position. You're going to put yourself in the trustee position, and you can liquidate at any point in time. There's no restrictions.
Oh, wow. And everything will be covered because it's irrevocable.
No problem at all.
All right, then. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me see. So somebody asked if the trustee and the grantor can be the same person. So if it's irrevocable, they cannot be the same person. If it's revocable, they can. Then someone asks, will there be a separate IUL session? So yeah, we have a session that is scheduled in April. The only people that can attend the live Zoom are community members. Someone asked if the trustee can be a beneficiary and the successor. So the trustee cannot be the successor because the successor is the person that takes over for the trustee. The trustee can be a beneficiary, but they cannot be the sole beneficiary. There has to be other beneficiaries. Someone also asked if they can add their home if the home still has a mortgage. Absolutely. So the mortgage is going to remain intact. It's going to remain in your personal name and on your personal credit, but the home is going to be directly owned by the trust, and it's going to be protected. Rudy has a question. Hey, Rudy.
Hello. Thank you for what you're doing. So I have a few questions. What you showed us right now, is that one part of the do-it-yourself? The one where you all the videos and everything that's on
Yes.
there? Okay.
Yes.
So all of those are included.
Everything. Yeah,
And
and
then
so do it yourself is you just doing it independently. You don't have me doing it for with you and or like double checking anything. But I'm the one that's in the training videos. So you just either watch the videos or you attend live.
okay. And then a question that I had, we used to have businesses before, but because of taxes and then life and everything, we closed them down. But my wife is working right now, and could we put her income into the business trust, or does it have to be a business putting money into the business trust on the way you have it broken down, which is business, family, then the last one that you had of like a church or whatever?
Yeah, so if she's a 1099, then 100% of it can go. If she's W-2, then she has to communicate with her employer to see if they would pay the trust directly versus paying her in her name and social. So
Oh,
some smaller employers will do it,
okay.
and bigger corporations will not.
If not, we would basically keep like what we used to have. Like I'm a chef, so I could keep that and then fund it per se.
Yes, you would have to manually fund it. So you would keep your checking account, direct your deposits, and then you would transfer after your direct deposits.
Okay. And then last one, this is something I heard. Somebody had said that you do an irrevocable trust, but you do your trustee as a revocable trust. Another trust is the trustee of the irrevocable trust.
It's just a strategy. So what I will tell you is that any one of these positions can be entities or natural persons. So grantor, trustee, beneficiary can be an entity like an LLC or a trust, or it could be you, a natural person. So it's up to you if that's what you want to do.
Okay, so another trust could be the trustee over the irrevocable trust?
Correct.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next we have iPhone. I'm not sure what your name is, but your hand is up. Thank you, Rudy.
My name is Valdez Burgess, and
Hi, Valdez.
hi. My question, which I kind of forgot, but the 508 C, the 508 C1A, 1AC, or what is it?
Yeah, C1A.
C1A. So when we form that, we can pick if we want to operate as a church, or if we just pick what is it, a church or a faith-based uh organization.
Correct.
And so are we able to, this is something that I heard, but are we able to 10x those deposits with that ministry trust?
So I've heard that too, and I have had community members that have been a part of other organizations and they never received any 10X deposits. So they've gone down that route and they never got any money. So I personally don't think that it's
With the asset trust, can you receive deposit back?
Hold on 1 second. Hold on, I have to mute somebody because I can't even hear you. Okay, go ahead.
With an asset trust, can you receive any bank credits from that?
So what do you mean by bank credits? That's what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, we'll receive deposits
So
back at
I'm not gonna say yes or no. I haven't seen it. So I have heard of people attempting to get bank credits and they never received it.
Okay.
So they put in all the paperwork and got nothing.
Okay. Gotcha. One more time. The $200 deposit holds the spot, and then we come back and we formulate a payment plan afterwards.
Correct. Yeah. So whenever you're ready to start the payment plan, then you will go ahead and let us know what you want to pay and how often, and then we will set it up in our system through our merchant. And then once you're paid in full, you'll get access to the course, and you'll be able to, if you're going to do the workshop, you'll be able to attend the live workshops once you're paid in full.
Once you're paid in full. Gotcha. Well, that's the answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Valdez. Next we have Zoom user. You have your hand up. Are you still available? I'm not sure. It says Zoom user.
Hi, I'm not sure if it's me.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, one of my employers is paying my LLC directly instead of paying my social, they're paying my EIN. But because I haven't gotten around to opening a business bank account, the check is still going to my personal bank account. Should I skip over to opening the trust? Part of the reason why I haven't opened the business bank account is because I own it with my partner. And usually to open the business bank account, they want your socials and they want all of your information. So I was kind of waiting to open the trust so that when we open the business bank account, we can name the trust as the owner of the LLC. Would you consider that that's the best move, even though it's been a number of months now that this has been going on?
I would definitely tell you yes. If you are intending to have the business trust be the owner of the LLC, then you want to make the appropriate changes now so that you don't have to backtrack, right? So just do it the right way moving forward rather than setting everything up and then having to go back to the bank or having to go back to the Secretary of State and doing all of this other changes and amendments.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That was my
You're
question.
welcome. All right, thank you. Next we have Britt.
Hello.
Hi, how are
Hi.
you?
Good. Sick, but I'll be all right. Hi. I have a couple questions for you. So I'm very interested. I've been following you on YouTube actually.
Thank you.
And surprisingly, I got an email that you're available today for this seminar. So a couple questions that I have are, could you give me a breakdown of what you're offering on your course, please?
Did you see the video? Did you just see me go through the course or no?
Yeah, I did, but I had to step away because I got a call, so I didn't hear you speaking precisely on the payment plans and stuff like that.
Oh, I didn't really talk about the payment plans, but do you want to see what's inside of the course?
Yes, pretty
Yeah,
much.
okay. So I'll show you. So
Okay.
so I was showing you guys that this is one of the trust templates. So this is just an example of what you get. And you have to customize everything that you see in red. So this is the actual course. So remember, it's 43 video modules. So inside of the course, these are all of the videos. So the first The first thing that you do is you go through trust entity, where we teach you what a trust is. We teach you about the different parties, so grantor, trustee, beneficiary, successors, protectors, the benefits, different types. Then we go through the tax exempt ministry trust. So you get all the information for that. Then you go through the family trust and you get all the information for that. Then you go through the business trust, you get all the information. Then you go through tax strategies. So you can learn how to operate tax exempt and how to avoid tax evasion. So you want to be able to operate your for-profits and nonprofits correctly. And then you go through asset protection. So inside of protection, you take an inventory. Somebody's pretty loud. Let me see. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then you go through taking an inventory of your assets, and then you learn how to open up bank accounts, brokerage accounts, how to transfer your house, your car, your insurance policies, your businesses, and how to have board meetings. You learn about wealth creation. So how to actually set up the business credit so that you can use OPM in order to invest in stocks. So you learn how to invest in the stock market, and then how to become your own bank by using infinite banking, which is the insurance policies, in order to house majority of your net worth. And then how to build a legacy crest, and then all the resources and ebooks. So we do have the payment plan options available. So you can you can make 3 payments if you want for the course. You can make 5 payments for the workshop, and then you can also make 4 payments for the private sessions, or you just customize and make your own payments. So if you need a custom payment plan and you don't want to utilize the payment plan options that we have available on the website. So our website is wealthytrustee.com. So just go to the website, you'll see all the payment plan options. If you don't want to go with those and you need a custom one, then just text the number that you received, or you can email us, and then we will be able to create a custom payment plan for you. Okay.
Okay. Per the done one-on-one, right? You have customized trust and notarization. What exactly is that? Because that's the one that's different for the done with you.
Yeah, so that means that you don't have to do it yourself, right? So for the course and the workshop, you have to do it yourself. For the one-on-one, we do it for you. That means that we set up the trust for you. You don't have to do any paperwork. We notarize the trust and we ship it to your house. So everything is done for you. You don't have to lift a finger. All you have to do is just the physical stuff, which is actually, once you get your notarized trust, you go to the bank and actually open up your trust fund.
Okay. Okay. I think that answered my question.
Okay, thank you, Britt.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next. I think it is Sheila. Oh, is it okay? 16462.
Yeah,
forgot.
Stella.
Stella?
Yes, Stella.
Oh, Stella. Okay, all right. Hi, Stella.
Hi, thank you again. I have a question. So my question is, so let's say I have an intention of operating a business outside of the state of New York. And few people had already advised me to open an LLC with, in Wyoming or Delaware. So since I intend to, have everything converted to a trust fund, does it still make sense for me to do that? Or can I just have my LLC here in New York and then transfer everything to the trust fund?
Yeah, if you don't want to, you have to understand an LLC is a statutory entity, okay? So, with that, the state heavily regulates your LLC. They can shut down your LLC at any point in time, right? So if you don't pay your annual report, you're shut down, right? So if you don't want to go down that route of actually creating a statutory entity, then you can go down the route of setting up your trust and operating through your trust.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. And then someone asked, if they start with the do-it-yourself, can they later decide to move up to the next level. Absolutely. So you can upgrade at any point in time. So if you start with the course, with the do it yourself, and you feel like you don't want to do it yourself anymore and you want to join the workshops, you can do that. So you can just pay the difference in order to upgrade, and then you'll be eligible to have lifetime access to the workshops, and you'll be able to attend the next workshop. Britt, you have a question?
Yeah, I have one more question, my bad. As it pertains to, you said you used to do wholesaling, right?
Me?
Yes. Is that something that you still do?
No, I flip houses. I don't do wholesaling. I said I'm a real estate investor. I don't do wholesaling.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
I flip houses.
Okay. All right. No problem. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome. Someone asked if you do the done with you, do you look over all the documents before submitting? Yeah. So with the workshops, after you're done with the 1 week long workshop, then that following week, you'll book a call with me and I will be able to look over all of your trust documents, all of your templates. So if you did the quitclaim deeds or if you did the business purchase agreement, I'll be able to double check everything for you. So that's very, very, very important because every single time that one of our community members has sent me a document for me to look over, or we've jumped on a Zoom and I've looked over, I've caught something. So there hasn't been not one person that my set of eyes haven't caught an error, a mistake, or anything like that. So you want that opportunity for someone else to be able to double check everything before you get it notarized. Any other final questions? We are going to wrap it up. It's kind of late. It's 10:22. I appreciate everyone being here on the call. Somebody asked, with the do it yourself, do you get the Facebook and Telegram? Absolutely. Yes. So with all of them, you do get the Facebook. You get into our Facebook group and our Telegram chat. So that is powerful in itself because a lot of our community members are networking. They've met in person. I've met them in person. Some of them live down the street. So it's just powerful, 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 powerful for you to be in close proximity with like-minded people who are going down the same journey that you're going down, right? And so everyone here on this call is a generational curse breaker, all of you guys. Every single last person. That's why you are on this call today, because you're the generational curse breaker in your family. And so what you're going to be doing now is when you are setting up this trust, you're going to be changing the trajectory of your family. You're going to be changing the lives of your children's children, because now you're going to be raising your children to be trustees, your grandchildren to be trustees, right? Instead of the alternative, instead of the other way around, which is you're just raising them to go ahead and be an employee of somebody else's business, right? They can't inherit that business. They can't inherit your job, right? But what they can inherit, right, is your legacy through the estate that you're creating. So I want to empower everyone to create their estate, but do your research, okay? So everything that I have educated you guys on tonight, do your research, go down Google, go down to the library, do whatever it is that you need to do in order to double check and make sure, and in order to just make sure that, this is the right decision for you. All right. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight.
I have one quick question. This is Valdez.
Yeah, go for it, Valdez.
Okay, the IUL, is there an IUL which you can withdraw funds? Well, first of all, is there a certain limit that it needs to be at before you could draw from or take loan from, or is it up to 1 year before you could withdraw any funds?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So it depends on your surrender charge, okay? So every single carrier is different. So there are some carriers where you can withdraw right away. But that's only if you put yourself in a position to do that, because you have to build up cash value. And so usually if you want to be able to withdraw right away, you would have to front load your policy, meaning that you would have to put a big chunk of money in the beginning, because you have to be able to cover your surrender charge. So your surrender charge is the same thing as having a security deposit. So meaning that your surrender charge is an amount of money that the insurance carrier is going to hold on to for the first 2 years of your policy. And if you cancel, they keep the surrender charge. If you don't cancel, they've released the surrender charge back to you and they put it in your cash value. So when you start your policy, your surrender charge is going to be an amount that is based off of how much your premiums are, right? So let's just say that your surrender charge is $3,000, but you're only paying, $600 a month for your policy. It's going to take some time for you to cover that surrender charge, because you're going to be paying your policy $600 a month, $600 a month, $600 a month, right? And so let's just say that 100 of it is going to insurance, and 400 of it is going to cash value, and then the other last 100 is going to your surrender. If your surrender is $3,000 and only $100 is going there, it's going to take you some time to cover that surrender charge. Once the surrender charge is covered 100%, then you're able to borrow from your cash value, right? So that's why a lot of people will front load their thing. So if my surrender charge is $3,000, I want to cover it initially, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my policy off with $6,000. So I'm going to automatically day one put $6,000. That already covers the $3,000 surrender charge. And now I have $2,800 sitting inside of my cash value. And now I'm able to work my policy and borrow from it.
Gotcha. Okay. So, cause I was thinking like maybe 20, 30K to start it, and yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it just depends on how you set it up. So our team, they set it up the right way, and they'll show you, the strategy that you need to take for your policy. Okay. So you can click the link that's inside of the chat and book a call with our team.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everybody, take care. You guys have a good night. Bye.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.